Welcome back to the Film Feeder podcast. I'm your film chef extraordinaire, Jack Martin, and I am very, very, very tired. Not because, yeah, because of life in general, but also because I'm still getting over some jet lag, because I have just gotten back from Toronto. I've been to the Toronto International Film Festival. That's what this episode is going to be all about. And today, I am joined by a very special guest. She is Tina Kakadelis. Hope I've got that name right.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Oh,
First try too. I'm very impressed.
thank goodness. I saw this and I was just like, oh my God, I'm gonna screw this up so bad, but I'm glad I didn't. So
No, it was perfect.
excellent. So first of all, how are you doing today, Tina?
Also tired. Yeah, I don't have any jet lag to blame it on. I just have TIFF to blame it on, which feels fair.
TIFF, of course, being the short for Toronto International Film Festival. And for those who don't know, this is pretty much one of the biggest film festivals in the world. It is highly acclaimed. All sorts of film people go there every single year. And this year, both I and Tina were very fortunate to go, in my case anyway, for the very first time. Was this your first time as well, Tina?
I think this was my fourth.
Fourth. Okay.
Yeah. Second as accredited press. But prior to that, I live close enough. Close enough is relative. I think what I've learned in the United States is that close is a 13-hour drive, which is very different in the UK, I've heard.
Yeah.
But yeah, close for me is like five hours. So I've volunteered there and I've met some people and stayed with them in previous years. So second time accredited, fourth time overall.
Because you've traveled from, like you said, the States
Mhm.
in Pennsylvania, right?
Yep, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Excellent. Oh, well, almost the home of Rocky. So I
I
know
mean,
that's Philly,
eight,
but
8 hours. Opposite end of the state.
I know. Well, I just got to throw in a Rocky reference in there somewhere because it's Pennsylvania, and of course it's
Yeah.
Rocky. But we're not here to talk about Rocky. We're here to talk about our experiences at TIFF, and we have to say first off that both of us were able to go because of a program launched by the festival, the organizers of
Mhm.
the festival, called the Media Inclusion Initiative. Now, for those who aren't aware, this is a program run by TIFF and partly sponsored by Rotten Tomatoes. And it's basically an initiative to help critics or film journalists from underrepresented backgrounds, whether it's race or gender or neurodiverse or whatever, to kind of get the kind of opportunities that other critics might have and people from underrepresented backgrounds might not. So in my case, obviously being a neurodivergent person with autism, I was able to qualify. And you yourself, Tina, you have your own qualifications as well. So we submitted the application, and to our amazement, we both got in. And what it comes with is not just full press accreditation. We get access to all the media and press screenings and all the stuff, but also and this is partly why I wanted to go in the first place. Well, not mainly, but one of the main reasons.
Mhm.
They give you a 1,200 Canadian dollar grant. Now, this can go towards like travel and accommodation, but in my case, 1,200 Canadian dollars rounds out to about 600, 700 pounds, so it barely even covers the flight
Wow.
over. So I just kind of used it as spending money myself, but I'm sure it went to good use for a lot of other people, and as I'm sure it did you as well.
Yeah, yeah. This is my second time as part of the Media Inclusion Initiative. Last year, I came just as they didn't have the mentorship program last year, so everybody was just the same mentee part of the program. But this year, I came back as a mentor, and I have a little better exchange rate, I think. So it helped me with hotels and not as much spending money, but definitely hotels. It makes a solid impact.
Yeah, and I think it's really good for a lot of people as well. I mean, not just the money, but just getting the
Oh
opportunities to
yeah.
actually go see all these films and experience everything. I mean, I was very fortunate to to have this opportunity. And I should actually give a shout out to my friend Billy Melissa Rogan, who has been on the podcast in the previous episode. She was the one who actually signposted me to the initiative when I met her at BFI London Film Festival last year. And she said that she went through the initiative and she had a fantastic time. It was literally life-changing for her. And she mentioned it, and I immediately got thinking, oh, wow, I could apply for that. And I did. And honestly, yeah, Billy, if you're listening, th this whole thing is thanks to you. So thank you very much, Billy. And how about yourself? How did you initially find out about the Media Inclusion Initiative? Was that something you just stumbled upon, or did a friend point you in the right direction?
I believe I stumbled upon it because I'm always trying to get back to TIFF, and I had when I was a volunteer, I think part of like the volunteer rules is that you're not able to cover it in like any sort of capacity
Hmm.
because that's what the press accreditation is for. So, but when I was volunteering, I wasn't doing nearly as much film related things as I'm doing now. And so naturally, after COVID started letting up, I started looking at could I get back to TIFF? Could I actually qualify for accreditation? And I think somewhere in the accreditation page is the media inclusion. And that's how I kind of stumbled upon it. And then that's how I applied last year. And this year, they sent out an email, I guess, to everybody who'd previously participated in the initiative to ask if anyone wanted to apply again to be a mentor for this year.
So the meeting, am I right in thinking that, the initiative is something you can apply for just once and then every time afterwards is like a mentor thing? Are there any particular benefits that come with being a mentor as opposed to an actual participant?
And the benefits don't change. I think it may have the rules may have changed like now that they've created the mentorship aspect of it because I believe when I was applying last year, you could it somewhere in the application it said that you could do this twice. So I think it may have changed now that they've introduced the mentorship aspect of it, but yeah, it's kind of the same benefits as far as like passes and stipends, but then there's the added assigning mentees and like helping and things like that.
Yeah, and I think all in all, it's a great scheme, and I
Hmm.
would definitely encourage anyone from underrepresented backgrounds to apply for it and just see where it gets you. Because I mean, I think I can speak for both of us when I say like Toronto is a fantastic experience if you're a film journalist because
It's the best.
it really is, because like not only are you just kind of like in your element the whole time, like everyone there is for the same reasons that you
Hmm.
are, just to see a bunch of films and connect with a bunch of people, and it's a great time. And there's so much that goes into the festival in and of itself. I mean, like the amount of volunteers, which this year they were represented by a lot of people wearing yellow shirts, which
Hmm.
made it very easy to spot them in the crowds. And the festival shows these volunteers a lot of love, and for good reason. They do so much hard work. They are just all like crowd control and just kind of directing people to their seats. I mean, there's even like a before each film, there's like a little reel that shows like gives their salute to the volunteers, and every single time it played, it got an applause.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, and yeah, they are the undersung heroes of the festival. And the last night I was there, I made a point to try and find every single volunteer I could just to personally thank them for all the hard work they've done over the 2 weeks of the festival. So yeah, I mean, I don't like to like say like, oh, I did a good thing and this is why, and yeah, you should love me for it. No, I just want to bring that up because I think it's worthwhile to kind of make sure that they know your appreciation, because you never know, someone might just need that on that day. And honestly, as cheesy as it sounds, it's cool to be kind to people, like
It
it's
really is. Yeah.
yeah. So shout out to all the volunteers. You guys really make TIFF so much better. And of course, there's other perks, being a member of the accredited press. You get like loads of free press tickets.
Mhm.
So you can there's like a little windows just before the film festival starts where you can just apply for certain screenings. I mean, they're not all available, which is can be kind of annoying, and you have to do all 10 of your allocated tickets at a time. Otherwise, it's a whole kerfuffle. I mean, I found that a little bit tense at first because there were some that I was trying to get, and then it just kept saying, "Oh, there's no tickets available for this." So like, I don't know. Did you find that the same?
I think I did, but I kind of expected it this year because of last year, and
Mm.
I tried to play. I get a little obsessive. I get a lot obsessive when I plan for TIFF.
Yeah.
And so I tried to book the bigger movies that I wanted, but later in the festival.
Uh-huh.
So like avoid the first rush of like I wanted to see Night Bitch, but I was not trying to fight for Night Bitch day one tickets. I got Night Bitch on the last day of the festival, no problem in that first allocation. And then I also felt I mean I also am a little biased because I had already like lived through the experience, but I knew that like there's so much shuffling that happens once you start of like swapping in tickets and trading tickets and then picking up tickets that I knew that I was had a pretty good chance of getting eventually most of what I wanted to see.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I mean that's a hell of a sentence to say. Like I was fighting for Night Bitch. I should point out, Night Bitch unfortunately isn't one of the films that's going to be covered on here because unfortunately I didn't get a chance to see it. But we'll be talking about a load of films in a bit. But just want to start off. Just let's. Might as well just start at the beginning because
Hmm.
so I fly into Toronto on the Tuesday, the 3rd, like a couple of days before the festival kicks off. So, and I flew in early, for a couple of reasons. I wanted some time to just kind of like explore a little bit of the area beforehand, and the day after, on Wednesday the 4th, I had actually booked myself a day trip to Niagara Falls. Because when you're in that part of the world and it's that close to where you're staying, I mean, it'd just be rude not to, like,
You gotta see it, yeah.
oh, it's got to see it. And anyone who has that chance, take it because Niagara Falls is beautiful. It's an
Mhm.
absolutely gorgeous sight. Like, I mean, just the whole like falls of it in and of itself. They're just magnificent to watch. I mean, I can't remember if it's one of the wonders of the world or not, but it's close up there, I think, because it's just a magnificent spectacle. And I took lots of pictures. Like, we went on this tour coach thing, and oh, God bless him. The tour guide, he was a lovely guy, but he spoke in this very monotonous tone the whole time, which made it. I mean, like it's an uncanny ability to sound like he's always reading from something, even when he's not. Like
Yeah.
it's that kind. It's that like that, and like the journey from Toronto to Niagara is like 1.5, 2
Mm.
hours. So imagine listening to something like that for the whole time. It's just like. I know you should be excited about this, but it feels like I'm hearing an audiobook, like
Yes.
it's like I'm hearing someone reading like Lord of the Rings or something. But no, I had a great time at Niagara Falls. I saw lots of sights. I saw the floral clock that they have, and we even stopped off at one point to do some maple syrup testing because Canada.
That's
And
fun.
yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not huge into maple syrup. I don't really have much of a sweet tooth. And, syrup, I always just kind of, the same with caramel, really. I always just found it very sickly.
Oh
And, it's
man.
just a very sweet. I mean, I know it's like a lot of people over there just like pour it on just about everything. I mean, I can't talk that much. I mean, I put ketchup on everything. So, like, I can't complain that much, I guess. But you know what? I will say that the syrups that they had us testing were actually pretty nice. Like, they were quite strong in tastes, and like there was it's like tasting like the tequila shots, like tequila shots for diabetics.
Yeah. Canada's tequila.
Canada's tequila. So that was fun, and then obviously as part of the tour, I actually got to go on one of those little boat cruises that actually take you up close to the actual falls themselves. So you got very wet. A lot of people were wearing these like red plastic ponchos,
Hmm.
just to kind of keep them barely dry. And this is actually kind of fun. I actually managed to do a weather report. So take it away, Jack. This is Jack Martin reporting live for BBC Weather. As you can see, it is bright skies, but there is a very small chance of rain. Everyone is prepared for the worst. I don't know about you, but I think it's going to be a bit of a stormy day. Highs of 26. For more on this, visit the BBC website. Back to you, Trevor. This is Jack Martin with some breaking news. The weather has gotten worse. Don't know what happened to the lovely weather, but it is now storming like a motherfucker. And you know what? Even still, I'd rather be here than rainy old England. So back to the studio. Back to you, Trevor. For BBC Weather, this is Jack Martin. The rain seems to be picking up again. Some bright blue skies, as you can see. Yeah, there's some sprinkles. Everyone here is wet. It is more moist than a screening of 50 Shades of Grey. And I don't know if we're over the worst of it now, but I will update you if there's any further news. So back to you, Trevor. The weather is absolutely pissing it down, as we say in the UK. Yeah, everyone here is absolutely drenched. I can't say for sure, but for some reason it looks like blue skies are coming, and I think that is all we have time for the weather. Go to BBC Weather to find out what's happening in your area. Back to you, Trevor, in the studio. Well, thank you very much, Jack, for that weather report. And so yeah, so that was fun, and got very wet, and yeah, and luckily my phone survived. And yeah, after that, I just had a bit of time to just wander around the Niagara area. They've got lots of like shops and restaurants. I ended up dining at the Hard Rock Cafe in Niagara Falls, which, you know, I usually make it a point when I like visit a new country. I try and find that kind of establishment. I know as touristy as it sounds, yeah, you got to do Hard Rock Cafe at some point.
It is pretty American, yeah.
It is very
Oh, but you
American.
were in Canada. Oh,
It
never
was,
mind.
well, technically, America was just across the way. You know,
Yeah,
Buffalo.
you can walk. Like
Yeah.
you just walk right across the bridge. I've done Niagara Falls quite a few times, but never actually done like I'm jealous that you went on the boat because I've never done that part of it.
Oh, really? Oh, you always
Yeah.
just saw it from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, I guess it depends, like, if you're keen on getting wet. I mean, they give you the poncho, and that only
Yeah.
does so much, but yeah, it's definitely worth doing. I think it's just fun to just kind of, I mean, it counts as your daily shower as well. So I would say that bring some like shampoo or conditioner or something, and you're all set.
Don't
Um,
give people ideas. Somebody will do that.
hey, I did a weather report, so anything's possible at this point. So yeah, that was fun. And so did all that, and then managed to get the coach back to where they dropped us off, which is by Ripley's Aquarium, which is
Mm-hmm.
right by the CN Tower. More on that one later. And then I even had time to pick up my press badge, which was nice, like a little it's just nothing special. It's just like a little like plastic badge with your name on it and the TIFF logo. It's just like I was like, but holding it, it's just like, oh wow, this is such a huge moment. I'm officially a TIFFer.
Yeah.
Like it's just like can't believe I'm actually here, which is crazy. So that was a cozy moment. And then just ended the day with because they went over to the Cineplex, which is like the
Mm-hmm.
big multiplex chain they have in Canada. So over on Yonge Dundas. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but
I think
anyway,
it's Yonge. Yonge.
Yonge.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Yonge Dundas. So I went there and they had an early showing of the new Beetlejuice movie, which I saw, and and I enjoyed that quite a bit. The reviews
I've
on the web.
seen that tonight. I have not.
Oh,
I've I'll admit I've never seen the original Beetlejuice.
okay.
But my dad really wants to see it, so I am seeing it tonight. Uh, but I have no expectations, no idea what to anticipate.
Well,
So,
I actually watched the original fairly recently, but and I thought it was fine. Some of it still
yeah.
really holds up. It's a very 80s, and I will say about this new one, it's definitely the most energetic that Tim Burton has been in years. Like, I mean,
Which excites me.
it should, because obviously he has had a bit of a low point. The last decade hasn't been great. Films like Alice in Wonderland and Dumbo, they weren't very good. But this is no, this new one is definitely him back to him just being like his old playful self, which is really, really cool to see. So in that in that sense, I think you'll enjoy it. But I mean, I don't know how it'll be if you've not seen the first film, but yeah, I mean, so that's how I ended that last day before the festival. So that's with Beetlejuice. So yeah, I mean that's that. I guess now we can get to the festival proper, because it started on the 5th of September. So I made a point to get up fairly early, and I was wanted my first film in Canada to be a film called Oh Canada. So I thought it was only kind of fitting. So this is the new Paul Schrader film. He wrote and directed it. He obviously wrote the scripts for films like Taxi Driver and Last Temptation of Christ for Martin Scorsese, and obviously he's become a filmmaker in his own right. He made films like First Reformed and The Card Counter and Master Gardener. And I think with O Canada, so this is a film where Richard Gere plays a dying filmmaker. He's a Canadian American. He's American, but he migrated to Canada years ago as a young man, and he's played by Jacob Elordi for reasons that eventually become clear. And the whole thing is him just kind of like giving his final testimony, if you were, to Michael Imperioli, who's like a fellow filmmaker, and by the side is his wife, who's played by Uma Thurman. And yeah, I mean, it's weird because this film, I can see it working on paper, but
Hmm.
in practice, it's not very good. Like, I'll be honest, it's weird starting out a film festival with the worst film right off the bat, but no, I found this to be very, an alternate title for Oh Canada could honestly be Old Man Yells at Cloud, the movie, because it's just a man just kind of rambling incoherently for like 90 odd minutes. And and it's just very confused about itself. It's leaves you knowing far less about the main character than you do going in. And I just found it very unappealing. And I realized that Paul Schrader is a very hit or miss filmmaker, at least for me anyway. I know a lot of people like his work. I liked First Reformed. I wasn't that keen on
Same.
like The Card Counter or Master Gardener, but I think this one is very it wasn't very good. I felt that there wasn't much to get out of it. If I was confused and just all around uninteresting.
I also saw it. I guess we were in the same screening, just hadn't met yet.
Okay.
I similarly came out of it feeling like it was a very interesting premise of this man who seemingly can only tell the truth sitting in front of a camera, like to create something that will outlive him. But there
Hmm.
was nothing that he kept talking, building up to some sort of reveal. Like he has this deep secret that he needs to
Mm.
let out, that in order to pass along, like to pass happily, he has to say this to his wife and for the camera for honesty and truth. But his reveal was that he like cheated on his wife and wasn't the best guy, and that was it. And so I was kind of like, how, because he was a documentarian and he built his career essentially being an anti-war documentarian. And I thought it would have been so interesting if his big reveal was that he was pro-war all along, or like something along those lines, to just like really invert the entirety of his life. And I was waiting for that moment to come, and it just didn't come for me. And I was really sad because I also loved First Reformed. I thought it was a phenomenal movie. And then I didn't see Master Gardener or Card Counter, but I really liked the idea of it. And then I kind of left a little lukewarm.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a film that feels you leaves you feeling very empty. Like I was like you, I was waiting for this big reveal to
Hmm.
happen, and then it never happens. It's a very anticlimactic film, and I guess that part of it feels like the point because again, it is from the perspective of someone who is just literally on the edge of dying. So his mind is all just kind of jumbled and stuff, but. I mean, you can absolutely do films like that well, where it's like from the perspective of someone whose memory is fading. Like, look at The Father, with Anthony
Hmm.
Hopkins. I thought that did that exceptionally. I mean, this doesn't really have much of a point. Like, I felt like it was just watching just someone just be an old man in front of screen. Again, old man yells at cloud, the movie. There's no other way for me to describe it, and it's just like. Yeah, I was very underwhelmed by it, and I think I ended up giving it like 2 out of 5 stars, which is like the lowest of the festival. So we can only go up from here, folks.
That's true.
Um, and I think after that we also had our media inclusion initiative orientation,
Hmm.
which is so we banded together in like one of the little hotels along the street because the whole festival pretty much takes place on this one long boulevard. You've got like the TIFF light box there, which is like the main TIFF hub, and then you've also got venues at the Princess of Wales Theatre, and then down the way at the Royal Alexandria, and there's a bunch of hotels in there. So we were in one of the hotels, and we were there, just like had little Rotten Tomatoes bags there as well, which was pretty cool. I mean, as someone who was recently accredited for Rotten Tomatoes, is just like right up like these people get me. So
Hmm.
and of course, that's where you and I met as well, because a bunch of us were there and we all got to chatting, lots of like little snacks and everything, and yeah, we swapped pleasantries, we swapped business cards, and yeah, we just got to chatting. So hopefully I made a good impression.
Definitely, yeah, yeah.
Well, you definitely did, because obviously I remembered you well enough to ask you to be on this podcast. So I did have a look at your stuff anyway, and I have to say you do really good stuff. Like I'm really enjoying like all the stuff you put out. So
Thank you.
yeah, and obviously later on we'll be able to tell the dear listener where they can find you.
Yeah.
So we had the little inclusion, media inclusion initiative orientation. The president of TIFF was there for a little bit, and the woman who was running it all. Oh God, forgive me, I can't remember her name off by heart.
Celestina.
Celestina, that's it.
Hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, she was a trooper. She was so great at handling all of us, and she was very approachable. She was really just a warm presence, and we can't thank her enough for spearheading such a great thing. So props to you if you're listening somehow. We also were treated to a panel of people from Rotten Tomatoes, which was pretty cool. Like just hearing all of them just talking about like the state of criticism and how the stuff at the website works, and another thing that was kind of fun during the orientation bit, we had like little games that we played. We had to play like a game of charades. And I ended up volunteering, like, because we split us into sections. So I was kind of representing my half of the room, and I ended up winning one of the things, and one of the prizes was a ticket to the opening gala, which was David Gordon Green's Nutcrackers. So I don't have a review for this because I mean I was there and I was present. I was in the auditorium where David Gordon Green came out and introduced the film with Ben Stiller, who's also in the film, and hell, even Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, was there. He gave a little speech before the film as well, and I would have a review for it, but by that point, it's like 8 p.m. and it's the first day. I was fighting sleep, man. Like I was nodding off. Like I cannot in good conscience give that movie a fair review because I wasn't even awake for half of it. So yeah, I felt bad because I really wanted to focus on it, and but what I was watching, honestly, it seemed honestly just kind of mid. But I would have liked to at least enjoy the whole of it to kind of get a feel for it. So I guess that's my non-review of Nutcrackers. So Apologies for that. I think Hulu's just picked it up. I don't know if that means it'll go to Disney Plus here in the UK. I think they're planning like about a Christmas release, so who knows whether that'll be the case over here. But I think over in the States, it's definitely coming to Hulu. But yeah, so that was my day one. How about yourself, Tina? Did you see anything interesting?
I saw On Becoming a Guinea Fowl and Cloud later that
Okay.
day. Yeah. I really liked On Becoming a Guinea Fowl. I think it has a crazy name. And at first I was like, there's no possible way this name makes any sense at all. And then it did. And I think when that happens, like when you realize like what is going into it, I loved it. And then Cloud, I think I was in a similar place that you were. Where, and it's nothing against the movie. It's just like the marathon of TIFF of there's inevitably the theaters are so cold and you just like one and then you just kind of get lulled into like a little nap. But Cloud, I enjoyed for the most part. I think it slowed down. I had like I kept dozing off, but never like fully asleep. And for me, it was really strong. And then it had these like supernatural elements it was like a cyber thriller kind of movie. I forget who directed it off the top of my head, but it was about like resellers and like kind of getting dragged down into this like tech world of cyber crimes. And then there were also like little supernatural elements sprinkled throughout. And for me, I wish that they kind of capitalized on those supernatural elements and like leaned into that. But yeah, all in all, I think those two were a strong way to end my first day.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, it sounds like we got a better deal with those than we did with O Canada. But luckily for me, I was actually at a much better movie the next day. I was up bright and early, experienced my first massive queue. It was the only press showing for a film that had already gotten a fair bit of buzz out of Venice Film Festival. I was at The Brutalist, which is
I'm
the new
so
film.
jealous.
Yeah, and you'll understand why in a couple of minutes. So this is the new film by Brady Corbett, who previously made The Childhood of a Leader and Vox Lux, and this is his big, epic 3.5 hour historical saga of a Hungarian Jewish man, played by Adrian Brody, who travels to America after escaping from war-torn Europe. And he's an architect, and he originally stays with his cousin, who's Alessandro Nivola, and his wife, who doesn't really want him around, because there's some underlying anti-Semitism there. And he eventually gets assigned to design like a library for a very wealthy man, this tycoon played by Guy Pearce. And Guy Pearce, he's initially like furious because like he's originally been commissioned to do it as like a secret project for his son, who's Joe Alwyn. And when Guy Pearce comes back and sees it, he's just furious and just throws Adrian Brody out, and just like, yeah, this is terrible. And then, but later he approaches Adrian Brody. It's just like, actually, I apologize for my behavior, but like what you did is actually really, really impressive. And I want you to help design this thing that I have been wanting to build for years. And so the film is just about Adrian Brody just kind of juggling all these things because he's also got his wife coming over, who's Felicity Jones. She's wheelchair bound from all the malnourishment she received when I believe she was in one of the concentration camps, but she's incapacitated in that regard, and also his niece as well, who's Rafi Cassidy. And the film is just it. I mean, the first half, it's a film that's in two halves. There's an intermission in between, which is very, very wise because it's a long sit, 3.5 hours. And
Hmm.
like this first half of the Brutalist, honestly, is phenomenal. Like this is like proper new Hollywood filmmaking that you would expect to see the likes of Michael Cimino or Francis Ford Coppola making in like the 70s or 80s. And like honestly, I imagine this is what a lot of people will be reckoning that Megalopolis is going to be. But I don't think they're going to get that because it's Megalopolis. But this is very much more Coppola based than that. And honestly, everything about that first half, just the cinematography, the production design, the acting especially. This is one of Adrian Brody's best roles. It might even be his best, honestly,
Mm,
even more than The Pianist, which he won the Oscar for. And Guy Pearce just disappears into this guy. Like he is brilliant in this film. Like it would not shock me if Guy Pearce actually scored an Oscar nomination for
mm,
this because he is that phenomenal in it. You never see Guy Pearce, you just see this character, and he, yeah, and I don't want to say too much about where this stuff goes then, but it's just such a fascinating performance. And then, so yeah, everything about the first half of the Brutalist, phenomenal, would easily be 5 stars. But then in the second half starts, and it's still really good, but it goes places which are a bit, I don't know. I guess I don't think unexpected is the right word. It's just more like I was like, oh, we're doing this now, okay,
mm,
and then it just kind of ends, which is a bit weird for a 3.5 hour movie, to come out wanting more of it. But overall, I think The Brutalist was so close to being like a perfect movie,
mm,
and I feel like if it had stuck the landing more in that second half than it did in the first, then honestly this would be just a fly off the walls contender. And what we still get is still great. I,
mhm,
I definitely highly recommend it. I think it's out in January in the UK, and I know that it's just been picked up by A24 in North America.
mm.
So but yeah, I would definitely recommend The Brutalist. And quickly as well, I also managed to get out of that screening and went straight into The Last Showgirl, which is the big touted as the big comeback vehicle for Pamela Anderson. They say this is going to do for her what The Whale did for Brendan Fraser.
Hmm.
But it's much closer to another Darren Aronofsky movie, The Wrestler, and honestly, I think. I'm in kind of two minds about it because I mean, there's no doubt that Pamela Anderson is giving her all in this. Say what you will about her acting abilities, but she is definitely showing passion in this performance. Like,
Mhm.
and she is just going for it. She's really playing into like her known like on-screen persona, which is just like this kind of like airhead thing, and she really puts that to good use here. I just felt like the film. So this is a film by Gia Coppola.
Mhm.
And I felt that the film didn't really match Pamela Anderson's passion. Like it's a very airy film. It's a loose film. It's only like just under 90 minutes, but it just kind of comes and goes. Not really much happens, and there's some weird stuff. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis shows up in just looking like Donald Trump in drag. Like he's just full on like orange makeup and stuff. But she has some funny moments, and yeah, she has this moment where she's just dancing on a tabletop to Total Eclipse of the Heart, and Dave Bautista shows up. He's pretty good in the film
Hmm.
too, as like in a very tender role. But I just felt like the film was just too airy and just kind of
Mm.
not really that consequential. Like I felt it was a bit of a letdown, but I did respect Pamela Anderson for going the full hog. So that's a 3 out of 5 for me. So that's what I saw on that day. And what about you? What films did you end up seeing?
So I started my day off. I didn't try for the Brutalist because I didn't want to wait in the line.
That's fair
So
enough.
yeah, I really want to see it, but I was like, I don't want to take this gamble. And I interviewed Hanan Townshend, who did the music for Went Up the Hill. So I needed to see the movie to be able to interview him to about his score. So I went to the P&I of Went Up the Hill, which is with Daker Montgomery. I've actually never said his name
Oh,
out loud. Now I'm realizing.
do from Stranger Things.
Yeah, yeah, the guy from Stranger Things, from Power Rangers, which I deeply loved and nobody else did.
Oh yeah, he
And
wasn't that, wasn't he? Yeah.
yeah, I could go on and on about Power Rangers, but I shan't. And then Vicky Krieps, who is just always phenomenal in everything she
Oh,
does. And
I love her. Yeah.
it's a weird combination on paper. Like nothing would make you think that the two of them would work well together, but essentially, Vicky Krieps' wife passes away, and Dacker is the son of Vicky's deceased wife, but he's estranged. He never really knew either of them really. So it's the two of them kind of coming together at the funeral, but then like supernaturally things start happening. And the score is really, really cool because he uses like a lot of breath work. Like a lot of the score is just like choreographed breathing and like using body tones. It was very interesting. And talking with him was fascinating because I'm not a music person anymore, but it was really interesting and I really enjoyed it. Rating wise, I think I'd give it like a 4. I think I did a 4 out of 5. The ending didn't really do it for me, but it had built up so much goodwill prior to that point, and the ending didn't like ruin everything, so I was okay with it. But it wasn't like the total home run that it was building up to be.
Well, I mean, anything with Vicky Cripes or Vicky Creeps or whichever how you say her name, it's bound to be good. I mean she's great in just about anything. So
She's so good.
I'll definitely be on the lookout for that one. And what else did you end up seeing?
I saw Do I Know You from Somewhere, which was a little Canadian movie that was about a couple who started forgetting each other. And it was essentially kind of, they called it like a multiverse story without any like science fiction or special effects. But essentially, like the woman of the couple, she met her boyfriend, her now boyfriend, like many years ago at a wedding reception. And it kind of shows you that, but she also met another woman that night. And so it kind of shows you like the two courses her life could have taken had she like been with the guy or been with the woman. I thought it was very well done for a very clearly smaller budget film, and I liked that it was able to kind of create this little multiverse effect without making your brain hurt thinking about how this all makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was sweet. I think for me, they ended up like kind of the film kind of like firmly picks essentially like which path is right for the main character. And I didn't think that they did enough to really distinguish why one was right and one was wrong, because it wasn't like one of them was horribly abusive or like terrible or like awful. And it just like it for me, that was what was missing to like fully sell me on why this path was the better path for the character to take. But it was okay.
Yeah, it sounds like a very Canadian film, honestly. I mean, I don't want to stereotype it. It just sounds like it's very like, oh, this kind of like light, kind of with some deep themes, but nothing too hardcore or anything.
Yeah, nothing too crazy. Hardcore though was my next movie. I went from that to The Substance.
Oh, I'm interested to know what you make of that because I should say I saw this film before TIFF. They actually had a screening of it over in London, and like the director was there, Coralie Faget, and Demi
Mhm.
Moore and Margaret Qualley were there as well. So I got to see that with a full-on British audience. So I am very curious to see what Toronto made of that, and specifically what you made of it.
I loved it.
It's
I
so good, isn't
That
it?
was my favorite. Like I think it feels, I don't know, part of me like wanted to see if it would live up to the hype. And I was like, I don't want to just like, say it's my favorite because of all this hype surrounding it.
Hmm.
But every single day since I've seen it, I've been thinking about it. That to me is like the hallmark of something that just like is a really great piece of film that just kind of like shoves its way into you and you just can't stop thinking about it. Coralie and Demi were both there, and I got to ask a question which I was thrilled about. But yeah, the substance is just, it's everything that everyone is saying that it is, and it's nasty and it's gnarly and it's just like an onslaught for 2.5 hours, and it's the best.
It's so, I mean, like, again, like I'm just parroting here, but there's been like seriously that the only phrase I could think of while just as soon as it finished was holy fucking shit. Like that's the only thing that anyone can ever think about once they see it. It's just holy fucking shit. Like
Yeah.
I can't believe the filmmaker like Coralie Faget, like I don't know if you saw her first film Revenge, which is a very it's similarly provocative, or nowhere near as extreme as The Substance, but it's a very I mean, both those movies kind of go hand in hand because what I've noticed is like Coralie Fage has a very interesting way of deconstructing the male gaze because
Hmm.
if you look at Revenge and especially in the substance, there are a lot of very close-up shots, a very intimate shots of like people dressed in scanty clothing and just
Yeah.
very there's a lot of nudity in there, but the effect isn't really titillating. It's more just to create a sense of unease because the real horror, in my opinion, comes from just how all these men in the film just kind of leer over all these younger women just practically drooling, and then they just kind of cast aside all the people that they feel to be past their prime. Like at the very beginning, Dennis Quaid just kind of like who's having the time of his goddamn
Oh
life in this
yeah.
movie. Like, I mean, I love Dennis Quaid. When he went over the top, Dennis Quaid is my favorite Dennis Quaid, and he goes over the top and beyond here in a role that I think was originally intended for Ray Liotta before he passed,
Yeah.
which is sad. But and Dennis Quaid filled in, and then but at the beginning, like he's just really kind of just being not even being subtle about his just disdain towards older women like Demi Moore. She's fired from her aerobics show, and then just and that just kind of leads her down the path that she does throughout the film. But I mean, it is not a subtle film in any way, shape, or form, but that's kind of why it's great because a film like this needs to be as obvious as possible. And
Yeah.
it's just a gorgeously shot film. Apparently, it's that they actually doubled like I think about the French Riviera for Hollywood in that film,
Mm.
which explains all like the big sunny landscapes and all the palm trees and stuff. It's really cleverly done, and it's an incredibly creative film. I loved every bit of it, honestly. I mean, it's I didn't see it at the festival, but it's definitely one of my favorite films of the year so far. I kind of wanted to see it again, honestly, just to see how people react to it.
I'm seeing it. I started a podcast not that long ago with
Hmm.
my dad of all people. My
Oh,
dad
nice.
is an avid moviegoer, but he'll watch any like our taste in movies is wildly different, and he is a very, very opinionated man who just loves sharing his opinion and just it. So this is really a platform for him. But I jokingly was like, let's go see The Substance. And he was like, okay. And so we're seeing it. And I keep telling him, I'm like, Dad, it's gross. And he was like, I can handle it. And I'm like, okay. But like, somebody comes out of Demi Moore's back. Are you good with that? And he was like, well, that's a lot. And I was like, well, that's the tip of the iceberg. And then he was like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Oh,
So Saturday.
oh wow. I look forward to hearing about that. I hope you do that into a podcast episode because
Oh,
that
yeah, we will. The whole shtick of it is that it's just the car ride home. So we just have little mobile mics. And then it's just the two of us chatting on the car ride home.
oh, that's
So
amazing.
yeah. So if he's taking me to Beetlejuice tonight, then we are seeing The Substance on Saturday.
Practically the same movie. Let's be honest.
Essentially, yeah, I would imagine.
Oh
But
my
no,
God.
I haven't seen Coralie's original or Revenge because I am squeamish. But I was like, if the it's this, I have to see The Substance. And I was like, you can get over it. Just watch it. So,
I will say Revenge, it's not as out there as The Substance is. It's a very it's like a very extreme version of a film like I Spit on Your Grave, or one of
mm,
those like old rape revenge films.
yeah.
But it's obviously a very it's Matilda Lutz is in the lead, and yeah, that she's phenomenal in that, and you can definitely see a lot of Fage's style in that film that kind of leads into The Substance, but it's an entirely different kind of film. I believe it's on Shudder in the UK at least. I don't know if it is
Mm,
in the US, but it's somewhere you can find it. But The Substance definitely recommend. And so I think whilst we're on that high talking about The Substance, it's only fitting that I go right into my favorite film of the festival, which I saw at the very beginning of day three on the 7th. And it is, of course, Anora, the new film by
mm,
Sean Baker, which honestly, this was my most anticipated film of the festival because I'd heard so much about it beforehand, obviously with it winning the Palme d'Or at Cannes and, it being touted as a possible Oscar contender. This could be the one that finally gives Sean Baker an Oscar because obviously he's done such great work in the past, recently films like Tangerine, The Florida Project, Red Rocket, and and this film is said to be his masterpiece. So I knew that this was going to be a popular one, especially since they didn't have any other press screenings for it. They just had the one on Saturday morning. So I decided not to risk anything, and I decided to just go up, get up there at like 5:30, 6 in the morning
Oh
outside.
my goodness.
Yeah, I know, like Scotiabank Theatre, which is just around the corner from where the other venues are. And I was pretty much the first one there. And honestly, I made a very good decision because within hours, the line was just full of people trying to get into Anora. And I got to see it, and man, I love when a film just kind of fulfills all your expectations and then some, because Anora is just magnificent. So Anora is about a woman named Annie. She prefers to go by, but her real name is Anora. She's played by Mikey Madison, who some of you may know from films like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and the recent Scream reboots. So Annie is a stripper. She works at a strip club in Brooklyn, and one night she's introduced to a young man who's this young Russian guy. He's comes from an extremely wealthy family. He's just got this own little condo in somewhere in New York, and he just kind of takes a quick shine to Annie because she's the only stripper there who speaks Russian. So they kind of have this thing going on, and it's very yeah, it's a very beneficial thing. Like he gives all the attention and money, and they repays them with all sorts of services, and eventually they once in Vegas they decide to get married on a whim, and it's all very charming and thing. But then it all comes crashing down when his family finds out about the marriage and then tries to go over and force an annulment. So this film, I mean, there have been so many comparisons to Pretty Woman. Like it's
Mm,
Pretty Woman kind of by way of Uncut Gems, pretty much. Like Sean Baker has a very interesting way of just kind of twisting the tone. Like it's a very funny film, but then after a while, you're just on the edge of your seat, just nervous, like what the hell is going to happen next? And he's a very humanist filmmaker as well.
hmm
Like, I don't know if you've seen some of his previous films, but ones like Tangerine, ones like Red Rocket, Florida Project, especially, and this one, he has a very grounded way and very empathetic way of depicting sex workers. And,
hmm
because obviously in Tangerine, you have prostitution, and in Red Rocket, you have the main character who's a porn star. And in this one, is a stripper who frequently gets naked, delivers lap dances, and all that stuff. And it's never they're never shamed. She's never shamed for it. It is
hmm
absolutely a power thing for her. She does it not just because she enjoys it, but also because it kind of gives her the kind of fantasy that she always wants to kind of make for herself, which is to become better off. And I mean, Mikey Madison is phenomenal in this film. Like, my words, this is going to do for her what Pretty Woman did for Julia Roberts. Like, she is going to be a massive star after this film. And and Sean Baker as well. This is very much his masterpiece. This is just a perfectly balanced film of just tension and suspense and romance, and it's just I just highly recommend it to anyone. And I think it comes out in America around October, and then in the UK, it's currently scheduled for like the beginning of November. But as and when you can, do see Anora because it really is something special.
Yeah, I didn't wake up early for Nora. I'm banking on just the US release, but I'm excited for it. I think I've seen all of Sean Baker's except Red Rocket,
mm,
but the Florida Project is one of my favorites. I lived right around where the Florida Project was shot when I went to college,
oh wow.
and so that one holds like a very special place in my heart. But he's such a great filmmaker.
He is, and yeah, actually, I do have a slight funny story. It's a bit of a tangent, but like, so a couple of years ago, I was on a university trip to Rome, And part of it we actually get to see like Cinecittà Studios, which is like where a very very iconic film studio where they filmed all sorts of classics. And part of that was like we were going to go get to see a film, and everyone was really excited because oh wow, this is because this is about the same time that Batman's about to come out, the one with Robert Pattinson. So we were thinking, oh wow, we're going to go see Batman for everyone else. And the thing goes down, and it turns out we're seeing Red Rocket instead. And those who know that film know that it's a very different film than the Batman turned out to be. And so there are lots of very confused and disappointed faces afterwards. So I mean, the film is quite full on anyway. I mean, like it is about a guy who is Simon Rex character. He is kind of a scumbag in that film, but he's such a charming scumbag. Like you hate him, but like you're so invested in what he's doing next. And I don't think a lot of people really resonated with that, at least in my screen. It's like, "Oh, I just wanted to see the Batman, just like, oh
That's a
no.
hard. If your expectations are Batman and you're met with an American indie movie, that is that's quite difficult to reconcile.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. I mean, Robert Pattinson's kind of like an indie darling right now, so I guess there was
Yeah,
that kind of expectations. But like, no, I mean, everyone was just. I don't think there'll be that kind of reaction for Anora though. I mean, this is a film that pleases a lot more people than something like Red Rocket did. It's much closer to something like the Florida Project, which is kind of a bit more loose in its narrative, but it's a bit more heartwarming. It's a bit more
yeah,
bittersweet, and I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy it. I think, yeah, a lot of people are really enjoying it. Like every single film festival has got nothing but raves, and it's
yeah.
already touted to get a bunch of Oscar nominations. Best Picture might be on the cards, maybe even Best Actress for Maggie Madison, but. Yeah, so that's Anora, my favorite film of the festival, and yeah, no, I mean, I know unfortunately you didn't get to see Anora, but did you see anything else that was of note?
For that day, I saw four. I saw We Live in Time, The Legend of the Vagabond, Queen of Lagos,
Oh,
The Listeners, which I learned was a television show when I sat down in the theater,
oh,
and then Lázaro at Night. I really liked We Live in Time. I mean, I'm a sap at heart, and the chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh is just it's really what sells the movie and just maintains its sweet, heartbreaking narrative. I think it should pick up. I don't know if they'll get nominations for it. I don't know if it's going to have that much momentum for it. I think it might just because of those are the two names attached to it and they've already been nominated before. But I think it's a really sweet romantic comedy that's a sad romantic comedy because
hmm.
you kind of know how it's going to end based off of where it starts. So I enjoyed it though, and I cried. So well, I can't really complain.
Oh, I mean,
I got what I wanted.
because I did see We Live in Time. That was a couple days after. But I will touch upon it here because I did like the film. My main issue with it is just like the way that it's structured. Like I don't know about you, but I didn't because it's told in a non-linear format,
Mhm.
and I didn't feel that there was any reason for that. Like, I mean, it's a film that it just kind of goes all over the place and just like starts at one point, then it starts much earlier in the relationship, and then kind of goes a bit towards the end, and it just kind of goes all over the place. And then it kind of removes a sense of tension because you know what's coming next. And I mean, I'm the sort of guy who like prefers to that have their stories like start from the beginning and just I mean you can absolutely do non-linear storytelling well. I mean, especially in romance. I mean, we've seen it in films like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, like
Mhm.
you can absolutely do this kind of film well. But that movie at least had a reason for doing that, and We Live in Time really didn't. I actually felt the non-linear approach kind of took me out of it a lot, but other than that, it's a film that is very much driven by the fact that they are so great together. Like Florence Pugh, Andrew Garfield are fantastic together. Like they have
Mhm.
exceptional chemistry. They're incredibly charming. They have a lot of really heartfelt and very emotional moments. And so yeah, they are absolutely the best part of it. I just felt like the film itself was just very it's never for me. It was never better than just fine. Like I'm glad I saw it, and I can see it becoming an easy crowd pleaser. But honestly, I don't think it's got necessarily got the legs to go all the way in terms of like awards. I mean, who knows? I might be completely wrong, and
I'm
maybe if
always wrong when it comes to the Oscars. That I'm never right.
but anyway, I feel like I'm sure it'll get like some recognition, maybe like a couple of Golden Globe nominations, maybe
Oh
even
yeah.
maybe a couple of BAFTA, but Oscar, I'm not sure it has the strength for that field. Again, could be wrong, but so anyway, that's
Yeah.
my brief thoughts on We Live in Time. But the other films you saw, the Legend of the Vagabond, was it?
Yeah, The Legend of the Vagabond, Queen of Lagos. It was about forced evictions in this neighborhood in Lagos. It was made by a group of uh filmmakers from that area who have experienced the forced evictions. It was a fictional story, but told from like based off of their lived experiences, and it was stunning. It was this blend of magical realism plus like immense naturalism, and it, it was incredible. And they also blended the actual footage of that people took during these forced evictions, and they had to be like filming secretly because if the police saw it, then they would arrest them, and it would be a whole other thing. So it was just this very interesting. It's not a documentary, but it's so close to one that you can kind of feel it, that it is timely and like very close to home for the people that are in the film. So it was, for me, it was just something that I randomly picked up, and I was so glad that I saw it because it knocked my socks off. I really liked it.
Oh, cool. And you mentioned you watched a TV show as well.
This was one of my two TV shows. This The Listeners and M Son of the Century. Both of them before the festival, I like to go through everything that's playing and like look through and kind of make notes on everything, and then make notes of like ones that are like absolute must-sees and like ones that I'm interested in. And for both of these TV shows, I saw the directors involved, and I didn't even read further than that. I just said absolutely yes. So The Listeners is done by, I feel like I'm gonna pronounce her name wrong. Janiska Bravo, who did Zola
Oh
from a
yeah,
couple years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Yeah, so I saw that, and I saw Rebecca Hall, and I was like, well, I don't need to read anything else.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so
with Rebecca Hall, I completely get it. Yeah.
exactly. The two of them, I was like, perfect. I don't, who cares? And then they were like, welcome to the first two episodes of The Listeners. And I was like, oh. But it's based on a novel about this woman, Rebecca Hall, who hears this like really low tone, like humming noise, but she's the only one who can hear it. And so like then she finds, or so she thinks, and then she finds some other people who can also hear the sound. And then there seems to be like a weird cult that has kind of like formed around the hearing of the sound, like the few people who have, and then not really a cult, it's like a support group, but then there's clearly some people who see it as like this is the universe speaking to me, and like seeing it in a more spiritual sense, and other people who are like much more practical, like I want to know what's going on. And to me that like social dynamics between those kinds of like, so the same people experiencing the same thing who are reacting to it in wildly different ways is interesting. So I enjoy, like I but there's no release date, so I don't know when I'll ever get to see the rest of it. But it was really good, and it was shot beautifully. And of course, Rebecca Hall is just
Yeah,
Rebecca
I feel
Hall.
like Rebecca Hall's one of our like most underappreciated actors working today because I mean she can do so much. Like you see a lot of like big films, like the MonsterVerse films, and like she even pops up for a little bit in Iron Man 3. But it's always like the little ones you see as well.
Yeah.
Was I want to say Christine? What was the one where she played
Hmm.
the Is that the
It's
one she played the
Christine.
news? Christine, yeah, the one where she plays
Yes.
the newscaster. Yeah, no, that she's phenomenal in that,
That
and
is a great movie that
uh,
nobody talks about.
I know, right? And then there was a horror film she was in a few years ago. It didn't do well at the box office, but I mean, it got good reviews, and she was good in it. I can't remember the name of the film.
Oh, me neither, but I remember watching it and really enjoying it.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, like as she pops up in other things like The Gift by Joel Edgerton. I mean, she's just a great actor, and I really feel that we're not really utilizing her properly in a bunch of stuff. So I hope she
We
gets a due
never
at some
are.
point.
Oh,
No,
The
no.
Night House.
Oh, yes, that's it. Yes, The
The
Night
Night
House. That's
House.
it. Yes, that's the one. I
Hmm.
believe it's on like Disney Plus or Hulu or wherever. It's somewhere. But
It's
yeah,
great.
it is pretty good. And what was the other film that you saw that day?
That one was Lázaro at Night. I don't, that one was like far more experimental than I'm not usually an experimental person, so this apparently was exactly in line with the director's other works, and that's on me for not doing my research of finding myself in an experimental movie. But
Um,
yeah.
but so weren't really into that one, or just kind of it was what it was.
I wasn't really into it. There were parts of it that I was intrigued by, but then it kind of went to an experimental way that didn't really. I find it difficult a lot of times to really connect and like follow through with experimental films. So it's no fault. Like I think that this movie has a very specific audience, and I just don't think that I'm one of them.
Well, I think that's it for day three. And day four, which was the 8th, I actually had a day off from all the screenings. So I decided to do some of the fan zones, which is like little bits of the red carpets where like people can go in and get a chance at maybe like meeting some famous people. And I had a great time doing that. And I am actually going to go over to another segment that I've recorded separately from this one. So I talk about all of that with Benji Smith, and you can hear that right now. Welcome to the section of the show where I talk about my experiences in the fan zone. For those who don't know, this is the part of the festival where people can line up at God o'clock in the morning and just for a spot on the various red carpets at the Toronto International Film Festival. And joining me to talk about it right now is a fellow fan zone person. It's Benji Smith. Hi, Benji. How you doing?
I'm great.
Yeah. How are you doing? You recovered from TIFF?
Oh yeah, it was a tiring few days recovering, but it was very fun.
So yeah, we're just going to talk about our experience. So this happened on Sunday, the 8th of September. The Sunday, this was my day off from seeing all the films, and I decided, because I'm a fanboy at heart, I wanted to do a couple of red carpets that day. So they were having ones that day for The Wild Robot and Anora. Let's start with how the fan zone actually works. So basically you line up every morning. They give out wristbands about 9:30 in the morning, different colors for different red carpets. So like Wild Robot was like a green color, I believe, and then Anora was like purple, and so on and so forth. And we met pretty early on, didn't we? We got there at a ridiculous time, didn't we?
I believe I got there at 4:50 a.m. and you showed up,
Wow.
so we were next to each other in line.
Me being me, I like to be early for a lot of things, so I didn't know how busy it was going to be. But I think people didn't really start showing up till about 6 or 7, I believe.
Yeah, it got worse as the week went on, but on Sunday people didn't realize how early the people in the front of the line were getting there yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it varies from premiere to premiere, and I think we should say at this point that you weren't necessarily waiting in line for the same ones that I was. So I was doing Wild Robot and Anora, while you were doing The Assessment, which was
Oh,
the new film. Fleur Fortune directed it, and it stars Alicia Vikander. And who else does it star? Benji?
Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah, and so it's fair to say that you're a pretty big Elizabeth Olsen diehard, right?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. That was why I was there on Sunday, specifically why I was there, yes.
Well, that's honestly an understatement. All the times I've known you, Benji, like which is only over the past couple of weeks, you have been pretty non-stop about your undying love for a certain Olsen sister. So, which to be fair, she is a very good actor. She's been in a lot of great films. Obviously, been in Marvel Cinematic Universe as Wanda Maximoff, or aka the Scarlet Witch. So you were there to see her, and we will certainly get to your experience in a moment. For me, the day started with just getting the wristbands at about 9:30. They opened and got mine. I headed straight for the one for the queue for the Wild Robot, which was just around the corner. So the premiere took place at the Roy Thompson Hall, which, for those who know the Toronto area, it's that big dome-like concert arena, I believe it is. Which is like in the middle of like one of the squares and stuff. So it was there. So it was obviously reserved for like the bigger films. And we got there, and there were a bunch of people. Some people were dressed in Stitch onesies, because the film is directed by Chris Sanders, who voiced Stitch in Lilo and Stitch. And some other people there. I got to talking with a bunch of them, including a group of friends from Texas, I believe. They were there just to experience the fun. I think a lot of them were actually there to see Kit Connor, who does a voice in one of the in the film as a character. People know Kit Connor from Heartstopper, the Netflix show, and obviously I think he was probably one of the bigger draws that day in terms of like fans. But yeah, I mean, as for me, I wasn't there for anyone specifically. I mean, honestly, my most anticipated event was Anora, but I felt like Wild Robot, it was on, and I thought, just something to do to pass the time because I mean, I didn't really have any films lined up, so might as well. But you came and joined us for a bit in the line for the Wild Robot. You weren't queued up to go inside, but you just came along to hang out with you and your friend Anna, I believe.
Yeah, so my friend Anna met me later on in line and then became friends with Jack and decided that she would also like to go to that premiere. She knew I would not be going because I went to a lot of premieres every other day, but Sunday specifically I had reserved for Elizabeth Olsen. But I did join the line. It was a good group that day. It was a really good group.
Yeah, and I will say, from having done some of the premieres in London a lot of the time, there's much more of a sense of community in Toronto, like in terms of fandom. Like, there's very rarely a pe person who's like in it for themselves. They're all trying to help each other out, and everyone there was like really nice. I mean, every now and then you get like some like autograph dealers who just kind of ruin the fun for everyone. You call them scalpers, I believe.
Yeah, that
Or
are great numbers. I will say about the community vibe. I was trying to make a sign for Lizzie with Sharpies and it was going fine. It would have been fine, but these girls in that Wild Robot line actually ended up going to the dollar store and they just came back with a pack of markers for me. And I was like, and they just gave them to me. They were like, "Meet Lizzie. Make your sign, meet Lizzie." I didn't even know these girls, but they were just so kind and wanted me to have like my moment. And I think that just speaks values to like the people that were around us that day.
absolutely, and not to toot my own horn or anything, but I believe it was me who gave you the idea for the sign in the first place.
Absolutely, it was you. It was you.
Yeah, because I had made a sign for the Anora premiere later that day. It just said like came from the UK for Anora or something crazy like that. Because I wanted to get signs are good. Making signs are good for like getting people's attention, as we'll find out in a bit as well. So that was that. But and also the other girls in the line, they were I gave them some like of my coloring pencils and stuff, and they even helped design their own sign for the one at the Wild Robot. It said something like "We are wild for the Wild Robot," something silly like that. And it was fun, just watching them just kind of like color it all in, and just doing in the outlines with the Sharpies. It's just like, wow, I'm creating core memories for these people. So no, it was fun seeing that, and obviously then we were just like let into the actual red carpet zone proper, and we placed a bunch of us along the line. So there's some of us on one end and a bunch of other people on the other. And red carpet festivities, they kick off. A fair few guests arrive. One of the first to arrive was Mark Hamill, who obviously many people know was Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars franchise. But obviously you knew that because Mark Hamill's Mark Hamill. Initially he didn't sign anyone, which is fine. A big legend like that. Probably everyone wants a slice of him, so he just kind of made his way up. He gave us waves and everything. Didn't really expect much, and that's fine. He's entitled to do whatever the hell he wants. And then like other people arrive, and then Chris Sanders came along, and he signed for a bunch of people, and then Stephanie Hsu from who people will know from Everything Everywhere All at Once. She's also a voice in the film, and she came along, managed to get a picture with her, which is great. And she seemed like such a lovely person. Yeah, so that was fun. And I think a lot of people were really excited when Kit Connor showed up. Like, I mean, because obviously, like I said, Heartstopper is such a big deal in the US as it is in the UK, and so obviously, he was going around everyone causing a bit of hysteria. So but I did actually get to meet him. I also got a photo with him, and yeah, he seemed like a cool chat. I even got to say to him, "Hey, it's nice to see a fellow Brit among us Toronto people." So that was fun. And then something else happening that I'm a bit ashamed about. So I saw another guy coming around and chatting with people and signing and stuff, and I saw him sign like a poster for that Haunted Mansion film that came out like last year, the one that nobody saw. And I mistakenly thought it was the director, Justin Simeon, because it was obviously done by other stuff like Dear White People and so that, and it was all directed Haunted Mansion. And got to chatting with him, and again, he seemed like a very approachable bloke. Got a picture with him, and I just thought that was Justin Simeon, and then only to later realize it's actually the composer of the film. His name is Chris Bowers. He actually recently won an Oscar for documentary short, I believe. But he's the prolific composer. He did stuff like Green Book and other stuff like that. Also, he did Haunted Mansion as well. So putting that together is just like, oh shit! I thought this person was about. I don't know whether I'm racist or not. So if Chris Bowers is somehow listening and I accidentally called you Justin, I apologize to the bottom of my heart. So because I genuinely know it's such a rush in the moment. I really do admire your work and obviously Justin Simeon's work as well. So I feel bad about that. So I apologize.
Will tell you it is a huge rush in the moment because there were a lot of celebrities that would show up on the carpet and I'm like, I have no idea who that is. And then like 20 minutes later, after the carpet's over, I'd be like, oh my gosh. Like, and like you'd immediately remember, you'd like, because you're just on adrenaline the whole time.
It really is. No, it really is such a rush. It just gets confused and stuff. So this genuinely wasn't me just like, because I was like, oh, they're all the same. No, no, not that far from the truth. I actually, yeah, do respect both people who obviously happen to be of color. And I just felt embarrassed for it after looking. I was just like, oh shit, I think I called him Justin as well. I felt so terrible. And obviously, like Lupita Nyong'o, who's the main voice in the film. I mean, she showed up looking beautiful, by the way. She actually took a bit of time coming out of the car, I think, because I think her stylist was making like some last minute appliances to the hair and makeup. I mean, look well. I mean, she looked beautiful. Didn't get a chance to meet her, unfortunately. That's just the way it is. And then other people came along, like Catherine O'Hara popped up for a little bit, and then all the cast and crew that come up, they came back to like do like a photo up in front of like because they had like a statuette made of the main character in the film, Roz, the robot of the title. So everyone's there, like Lupita Nyong'o and Mark Hamill and all these people. And so okay, I thought that's the red carpet over with. They're just gonna go in, and many of them did, except for Mark Hamill. So what he did, he just suddenly went over to the fan line and just started taking pictures with everyone. And he wasn't signing anything, which is fine. Yeah, again, Mark Hamill can do whatever the hell he wants. But yeah, it was just like as he kept coming, I kept expecting him to just suddenly like go off and oh, that's me done. As I was like, no, he was going down the line. Like there was like I took pictures of me just like absolutely aghast, just like, oh my God, this might actually happen. I might actually get a photo with Mark Hamill. And I did. I got a picture with Mark Hamill right here. This is the proof. It was just, as someone who's always loved like Star Wars and Batman the animated series as a kid, just getting to be there in front of like Luke fucking Skywalker is like a huge deal. And honestly, that was just like a high that I did not expect to have that day. And I'm really grateful that Mark Hamill just took the time to do that with so many people when he didn't have to. And what's great as well is like apparently the getting actual photos with Mark Hamill is super rare. Like when he does like Comic Cons and stuff, he does charge quite a bit for like a photo op and like a signature and stuff. So getting that for nothing was mind blowing. I was the envy of a lot of people when I told them. Like even my even when my dad when I texted him the pictures, I was like, oh my God, that's Luke Skywalker. So so that was
I
my experience. That was Wild Robot. Overall a good fun time. And but then yeah, so it was a little bit of time for me waiting around for Anora, which was much later in the afternoon. And in the meantime, it was your time to shine, Benji. So you want to explain a bit about what you went through?
So basically, Elizabeth Olsen's movie wasn't starting till 6. So I knew I had some time, but I also knew she's my favorite like actress ever, anyone. So I knew I wanted to be the one to choose where I was going to be standing on the barricade. So I knew I wanted to be first in line. So went to the store, got my stuff for my sign, and then I kind of just chilled in the wristband holder line, which by the way, nobody really shows up for that until like 3 hours before barricade. So I was the only person there. Luckily, I'd been there before, so I knew the volunteers, so I just kind of hung out with them. They knew I was there, they knew what I was waiting for. Very fun. And so they're all meeting Kit Connor and Mark Hamill, and I'm just waiting in line, hanging out, waiting for my friends to come back and meet up with me. And yeah, I also was going to the assessment that night, so I'm just kind of running on adrenaline all day. That was very exciting. And finally, time starts passing by, and it's about 4 o'clock, which is when they were letting people in 2 hours before the movie was starting for the carpet. And I was extremely nervous. I think that was the only red carpet that I was actually nervous for. I know I was pale because my friends were pointing it out. They're like, "Are you okay?" I was just like, "I'm so scared." But I had my sign, which I still have. And it just said something like, "I love you, Lizzie." And I drew a plant on it because she likes to garden. And I was trying to be like, I'm not just a Marvel fan, I'm like a you fan. Though I am a fan of Marvel, but I'm just actually a fan of her.
Well, before you continue, I'm just curious to know what is it about Lizzie exactly that you're a fan of?
I'm just okay. I'm a very huge fan of how she carries herself and her presence. She's a very private person, which I can appreciate. Um, it's so funny because if you've never seen any of her movies that aren't Marvel, you wouldn't expect like you have obviously. You've now seen the assessment, but she's this is all I'll say about Lizzie, and it's kind of like a joke between like fans of her. The only movies that you should watch with your parents that have Lizzie in it are her Marvel movies. Because I really like to see like how sorry, I'm like trying to think of words. She's
That's
just
okay. That's okay.
she's very versatile and she's kind of just if she wants to do a movie, she just does it. So right now she's doing a lot of indie films. And she actually talked in an interview about how she's using her name to actually get those put into production. And she's realizing that she can use her name to do that, to get money, to get meetings. And I'm like, I just really enjoy that. Like, I'm enjoying that that's how she's using her name to get films that she wants made done. And I like that someone can star in a movie that's making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and then they'll go and star in a bunch of indie films because that's just what she wants to do.
This was a big moment for you, or you being the massive Lizzie fan that you are, and not just Marvel, but all the indie stuff that she's been doing. And yeah, when the moment comes, because I think like the red carpet starts about an hour before the screening. So what was the atmosphere like? Was it tense? Was it nerve-wracking? I mean, how did you find it?
I think my best friend Anna was standing next to me, and she knows how like much I wanted any interaction. I did not need to meet this lady, and I had already kind of interacted with her earlier that day. Elizabeth Olsen just waved at me, and my life will never be the same. She is perfect. She is gorgeous. She is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my entire life. I think I can die a happy man now. And also, she's really short, but she's still taller than me. So I was like, no matter what happens, I'm okay. I'm okay. And then I get to go see this movie, and I'm okay. But she's also like, kind of like, okay, like, let's be hyped because we're gonna have to like yell when she gets here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so tense. Everyone else was really excited. I was really nervous. Everyone else was like, shh, and I was just like, um, but I was standing right where the cars pull up because, like I said, I was waiting for so long. So I was like, okay, she should see me. Like, she should see me. She should see my sign. The cars pull up, and she's actually the first one out of the cast that shows up, which was not shocking, but I think everyone else thought it was shocking. But I was like, no, this makes perfect sense. Um, and she like just I guess she decided to go do press first. But she told us that she was coming back around. So for a minute, I was like, oh my God, she's not gonna even come over, which like would have been fine. Like nobody's entitled to that. But for a second, I was just like, oh. And then she was like, no, I'm coming back. And I was like, okay, cool.
Hmm.
And she did come back and she was talking to somebody for a few seconds. And all of a sudden, her eyes lock on to me and my sign, and she walks straight toward me. Like straight toward me, which was like, I don't like if I didn't have the video, I genuinely wouldn't believe it myself. But thank God that my best friend was recording an entire video of the thing. I made a fool of myself because she was so pretty and walking straight towards me that the Funko Pop that I was holding in my hands fell to the ground. And Elizabeth Olsen and her $11,500 earrings to pick up my $8 Funko Pop on her premiere night. And then she signed it. In fact, she wasn't signing anything that day, which I really didn't know about, but it does make sense. So I think I got the only thing that she had signed that day. And it is my prized possession. You can't really see it. I have like a $40 case on it because yeah.
For those who are just listening, she is holding up a Funko Pop of Wonder Halloween from WandaVision, and it's got Elizabeth's signature all over it.
Yeah, and it was really cool. I got the chance to just I wish I'd planned out what I was gonna say better. Because I would have said something like, I loved this project that you did. So it could be like I'm not just like a Marvel fan, but I feel like she probably maybe she knew. I mean, I was just like, oh, like just like I love you so much, like thank you. And she smiled at me and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then me and Anna actually didn't even wait for the rest of the carpet because we were like and we wanted to get to the movie to make sure that we were going to get in. So we kind of took off. Oh my God. Oh my God. I feel shaky. I'm literally gonna pass out. The way she looked at me dead in the eyes as she walked towards me. Oh my God. I dropped my Funko Pop and she picked it up. I got so scared I dropped my Funko Pop and she picked it up for me.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And you've got all that on recorded as well on camera. We've just been playing like video of it on the YouTube version for those who are listening, and it really looks like really a life-changing event for you. So I'm so glad that it really happened for you that day, that you got to meet your idol, that you managed to say whatever garbled words you could towards her, and she responded in kind, which is just really fantastic. I'm so pleased that you got to have that experience.
Yeah, it was truly, I will never forget it. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And it's kind of funny because now I've interacted with a few other Elizabeth Olsen fans on like TikTok and like making friends. And then I'll just say, oh, I embarrassed myself in front of Lizzie. And then they're like, are you the guy with the Funko Pop? Because lots of people have seen that video at this point. And so he is the guy who dropped the Funko Pop on Lizzie's premiere day. Which is cool. I'm okay with to be known as that. I'm hoping it came across as charming. Probably not, but hoping.
No, I mean, if I was in Elizabeth Olsen's shoes, I'm just like, wow, what a cool guy who's just gone to all this effort to like just like make the sign and get the Funko Pop, all that stuff. So, I mean, I'm sure she like encounters a lot of people who are far more aggressive and stuff than you ever would be. So, I'm sure she was at least appreciative to like have an interaction like that where there wasn't really any pressure and stuff. It was just one person meeting someone who happens to be a huge fan of their work. So. And I hope that if for whatever reason Elizabeth Olsen is somehow listening to this, then yeah, you really made Benji's day that day. So thanks, Lizzie.
Thank you, Lizzie. Sorry I dropped a Funko Pop and you had to pick it up, but thank you for picking it up. I really appreciate it. It's my possession.
It's amazing. And so yeah, I think everyone was over at that. And meanwhile, I was just sitting around waiting for the Anora premiere to start because that was the one I was mainly there to see. And I noticed like on the opposite side of me, like there's a huge like crowd of people just gathered around like the Roy Thompson area, just like viewing area. And they were just like huge screaming and like shouting like I can't believe it. It's like did Elvis somehow come back, and it's just like what is going on. And like I found out apparently around that time where they were having the premiere of this South Korean film Harbin, I believe it's called. I don't know, but anyway, apparently the lead actors in that are like huge names in South Korea. And so, and the majority of the crowd was did seem like of South Korean descent. So obviously, for them, that was like the big draw of the day. Like I think, like I'm not even sure that like Bruce Springsteen, who had a premiere later that day, I don't even think he drew that big a reaction from the crowd.
I'm happy it was that day because there's a lot less people competing for the Lizzie crowd. But also, just to point out like how big this was, I got there at like 4:40, 4:40, 4:50 in the morning for the fan zone line. Jack got there at like 5, like not long after. They don't give out the bracelets till 9. I was second in line. The person before me was waiting for that South Korean movie.
That's
And I was like,
true, yeah.
crazy. That's crazy. And she had gotten there at 4:15.
Wow, I mean, that's serious dedication. I mean, and goes to show how little I know about South Korean cinema and just film culture. I didn't even look them up. It's just like, unfortunately, I don't know who many of these people are. I'm sure they're very talented. I'm sure there've been a lot of really acclaimed films. I just don't know them off the top of my heart. I'm so sorry to any South Korean listeners who may be listening for some reason. I just felt bad, but so that was quite intense. I mean, the huge crowds are swarming around there. Meanwhile, I was just sitting on my own, just waiting for this much smaller, I guess, film to let in the red carpet. And for a while, I was the only one there. Like even when they opened up the red carpet, like I was only like one or two people who were just kind of like waiting around just to go in. And like you, I managed to get a spot right where like they drop off the cars and stuff. And so I was there like you with my sign for Anora, like came from the UK for Anora. And eventually a bunch of other people did come. I think they'd just come over from your premiere, the assessment one. And in fact, one of them, Chloe, she was with me at the Wild Robot, and I think she was there at the assessment as well. She had to dart all the way down the street just to the Royal Alexandria. So we were beside each other, and again, when the time came, like cars came up, and the sign actually attracted a few people. Like Yuri Borisov was one of the first to arrive. He plays one of the Russian henchmen in the film, and he's great in the film, by the way. He's also in a film called Compartment Number Six, which is a part Finnish film that came out a couple of years ago, and he's very good in that. And he's in this film too. And yeah, got to he came across the line. I got a picture with him. Then a couple minutes later, Mikey Madison shows up, who is the lead and is I think I mentioned earlier, like this movie is gonna do for her what Pretty Woman did for Julia Roberts. Like you mark my words, it's gonna happen. I like Elizabeth Olsen. I think she was just doing pictures that day, so I did get a picture with her, and yeah, and she did see the sign. She did kind of like give a little smile. She seemed really sweet, so I'm really glad I got to do that. And then finally, Sean Baker, who's the writer director, I think he came out of his car on my side, and he did actually seen one. I think my sign was one of the first things they said, and I could hear him audibly say like, "Wow, that's crazy," and he just like came over and he actually signed my sign, which is pretty good. And again, I got a picture with him. So yeah, I mean, like I think the moral of today's story is that signs work, especially when you're a fan.
Don't tell people that. Don't tell people that. The signs didn't work at all.
So that's pretty much what we got up to on my Sunday off. You know, obviously, I think all in all, I think we had a pretty great time. We got to meet everyone that we had hoped to see and a few extras. And I think as a genuine fan, or just lover of movies, I think it was such a nice environment to be in. I mean, in London, by comparison, it's a lot more aggressive. There are a lot more dealer types who just unfortunately just kind of like make it the experience far less enjoyable than it should be, especially for actual fans. So yeah, no, I'm really glad that I got to have this experience. And you know, if I ever do get to go to Toronto again, I'm sure I'll definitely do it again for whatever film I don't know. But I'm sure maybe there'll be an Elizabeth Olsen film showing there in the future. Who knows?
Elizabeth Olsen's gonna be there, I'll be there.
And maybe I'll find you there again as well. But
I'm definitely going next year. This was my first TIFF, and it's not gonna be my last because it was so much fun.
yeah, no, I'm just glad that we got to enjoy our time in the van zone. And yeah, I think that's about it. So, Benji, thank you so much for joining me and for reliving these glorious memories. Where can people find you online if you have a bit of an online presence?
Oh yeah, so I mostly just use TikTok. My TikTok is benjaru1. I post fan related stuff, talk about books. Uh, but that's where I am, and all of my other socials are linked to my TikTok. So,
Oh, that's amazing. So, yeah, no, thank you so much, Benji, for joining me. Thanks for sharing all your experiences with Elizabeth Olsen. And thank you, listener, for listening to this slight diversion from the path that I'm taking with my mammoth recapping of my experiences at TIFF. So, speaking of which, let's get back to the show. And we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. So that was my day, and it sounds like you did a lot more than I did that day too. So you want to say a bit more about what you got up to?
Yeah, I don't. When I'm at TIFF, the concept of a day off never enters my brain. I'm like, I can't. I have to see everything that I can. So I would love if I had that sort of like restraint and to do that, but I
That's
don't.
fair. It's not for everyone.
So that day I had some interviews. I interviewed Hanan Townshend, who did the score for Went Up the Hill, Luc Montpellier, who is a cinematographer for On Swift Horses, who also did Sarah Polley's Women Talking from a couple of years ago.
Oh wow.
And then the director slash co-writer and actor slash co-writer of this small Canadian trans movie called Really Happy Someday about a trans guy who was really big in the musical theater before he transitioned, and then now taking testosterone his voice changes, and so now he doesn't really know how to continue to do the thing that he loves because he can't sing the way that he used to. And so I interviewed the director, Jay Stevens, and then the star, Brenton Lalama. And it was really fun to do all of those interviews. And then I saw some movies. I
Of
went to the
course.
the Wild Robot
Oh.
premiere. Yeah, that one was very sweet. I cried again. Like those were 2 days where I was just crying back to back. So I cried. The Wild Robot. It's everything that the How to Train Your Dragon was like. It's very sweet. It's very endearing. You saw it too, right?
I did, yeah. So I saw it like the last day of the
Mm,
festival. So this is all the way in the future and on the 15th, so the Sunday, literally a week later after I did the premiere. And yeah, no, it is pretty much one of the best things that DreamWorks has ever done. Like, I mean, because
yeah.
you were mentioning How to Train Your Dragon, because it's this film's directed by Chris Sanders, who also co-directed the first
Mm,
How to Train Your Dragon. He also did Lilo and Stitch as well. And yeah, it is just a phenomenally crafted film. I mean, the animation is just gorgeous.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
It's a very similar visual style to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. That kind of like
Hmm.
watercolor, kind of like you can even make out some of the brush strokes in some of the clouds as well. But it's a very, I mean, the story is I was already sold on the basic concept, like just this kind of a mishmash of science and nature coming together.
Hmm.
Because you've seen like films before that have just been like someone in from a more civilized society, like bonding with nature and defending them and stuff like that. You know, films like Avatar and Pocahontas, all that stuff. Doing it from the perspective of a robot is something that I don't think I've ever seen, and it's such a
Yeah.
beautifully done way of just showing how science and nature can come together and they complement each other very well. They both learn from each other. It's not like, oh, one's better than the other. No, we have to go back to our natural ways over technology and stuff like.
Hmm.
No, it shows that they are both very different definitions of nature, and the ways that they complement each other are just so beautifully done. And it's such an emotional film. Like I was close to crying a couple of times, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just a beautifully done film, and I think it's going to definitely be a huge hit with lots of families, and I can see it from my point of view. Like the animated feature film Oscar race is over because like Inside Out 2 is pretty good, but Wild Robot just overtakes it. Like
Yeah,
I
I
feel
think
like
I would have to agree.
it really is. Like, I mean, because like obviously DreamWorks has been like known as like a pretender at Pixar for so long. I mean, one of its first films was Ants, and that was out within mere months of A Bug's Life.
Right.
But this is one where, yeah, it really does outdo Pixar in just about every way. Like, it is just a phenomenal film, and yeah, it was one of the few films I gave 5 stars to this whole festival. So that's my early take on The Wild Robot, and hopefully that wasn't the only film you saw that put you on the verge of tears.
I think that was the only other one that I cried. No, I cried at the Bruce Springsteen documentary, but
Uh,
that is but the Wild Robot, the last thing that I'll say about it, I think what pushes it over for me in terms of like Inside Out, because I was feeling like Inside Out 2 had like the runaway Oscar at that point, like when I saw it a couple months
mhm,
ago.
mhm,
But I think what pushes the Wild Robot over is really just the animation style, like you were saying. Like you just feel the heart and soul that was poured into it. And I
mm,
think it's just like the look of it as opposed to the look of I know there was a lot of heart and soul that was poured into Inside Out too, but something about seeing the brushstrokes and seeing those layers that they put in the Wild Robot just makes it feel so rich and so textured that
mhm.
I don't it just that one. I really like that one. And I think that'll be my vote for the Oscars this year.
Nice.
After that, I saw Julie Keeps Quiet. It's a tennis movie. I've played tennis my whole life, so anytime it doesn't matter the plot, I'll go see a tennis movie.
Nice. So I guess you were at Challengers earlier this year.
I did, and I couldn't turn off the tennis part of my brain while I was watching Challengers to like to fully watch it because I was just thinking like, oh well, this isn't right. Like this something's wrong here in terms of like tennis. So I couldn't turn my brain off. But with Julie Keeps Quiet, the lead is actually like a rising tennis star in the Belgium tennis circuit. So the
Okay.
tennis playing was incredible. And they actually, as much as I really enjoyed some of what happened in Challengers, like I think the glass tennis shot that they did was incredible. But this one, you like really feel the effort that goes into it, and like you really feel it. I mean, it feels real because she is the one that is actually doing it all and that actually is trying to do this as a career in the future. But it's also more focused on tennis itself as opposed to challengers, which tennis is kind of like a backdrop, I would argue. And it's more about like their emotional relationship. But Julie Keeps Quiet. She's a teen, I think probably like 15, 16, at a tennis academy where if you're going to make it to like the big times, you go to a tennis academy and you're training all day, every day, pretty much. And a scandal happens of uh, allegations of sexual assault from one of the coaches.
Mm,
And so it was really interesting to see her process because it was like the coach that she was closest to. So then she has to process all of the interactions that she had with the coach, how she feels about it, how she feels like with the power of coach, like the power dynamic between coaches and students in general. And I thought it was just a very well done, quiet movie that actually focused on tennis and understood it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about that one. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it likened to How to Have Sex from last year. Like
Yes.
I don't know if you saw that one, but that's obviously
Yes.
a bit similar themes of what sex is and sexual assault and everything. And it's very gripping, very quite disturbing a little bit. Again, that's How to Have Sex. I don't know about Julie Keeps Quiet, but I've heard it's that. But yeah, no, I mean films like that, you know, when you're tackling a subject like that, it sounds like you really have to go hard on it, otherwise it just comes off as superficial. And it sounds like it doesn't do that. It sounds like it really treats it with respect and
Yes.
doesn't that doesn't make it too exploitative.
No, not at all.
I feel that's very important because a lot of these things can just be like, oh, how horrible is this that we're showing? Yeah, how provocative and stuff like sexual assault isn't shouldn't be provocative. It's fucking assault. Like
Mhm.
that it should not be glamorized in any way. And I'm glad that it sounds like this film doesn't do that.
Yeah, I think its strongest point is that you don't actually really know what happened with Julie and the coach. Like,
Hmm.
they never tell, they never say, she never explains it. But the way that they build their relationship and the way that you see him treat her, like, it gets to a point where just like the ringing of a cell phone is just this like immediately
Hmm.
tense thing because you know it's him and you know that there's something very, very wrong about what's going on.
So yeah, that sounds pretty heavy, and it sounds like the next one was just as pretty provocative as well.
Heretic, which was very interesting and very fun. It's Hugh Grant, I think, at his most uh bad guy good time. It's the same as Dennis Quaid we were talking about, where he's just clearly having an absolute blast.
Oh, you know what?
But
I love Hugh Grant when he plays a baddie, and this sounds like him just going for that because this is an A24 horror, and yeah, I feel like those can be dime a dozen, but when they're special, you get something like this, which sounds like it's got an intriguing premise. So I mean, you've seen it, so why don't you go ahead and explain that a little bit?
yeah, calling it horror, like I really wrestle with this because for most of them, so it's about two Mormon missionaries, two young women who go to Hugh Grant's house, and he essentially puts their faith to the test. He says, here are two doors, belief and non-belief. You go through the one that you feel. So, like, will your faith carry you through? And so from the trailers, you kind of think that it's going to be like haunted house, well, not haunted house, but like a escape, like a dark escape room maze kind of thing with like a series of tasks and that they have to go through to get out. But it's not really like that, which I thought was, I think will surprise a lot of people just based off of the marketing. It's kind of, most of it is just them having theological debates. Like, it's much talkier than I think the trailers are letting on, which I personally like because I think that the way that they all work together, the three, it's basically the three of them, the two women, the two young teens, and then the Hugh Grant. And the way that they debate each other is very interesting, and I think it has a lot to kind of unpack about religion and belief and how that kind of goes into everything in our society. And then the part where it kind of leaned into horror is the part where it kind of lost me a little bit because they had built up this really interesting tense atmosphere and then kind of went the way of uh, not fully just like unbelievable goofy things, but there were just like a little bits of horror movie cliches that you were just kind of like, oh, we didn't need that, you know? Commit to your theological debate movie because that's pretty much what it was.
You know, from everything I've heard about this movie, Heretic, it sounds like the kind of antithesis to like all those like big Christian films like God's Not
Mm,
Dead and War Room and stuff like that. Whereas a lot of those movies are just made by very like bigoted and hateful people. Just say like if you're not a Christian, then you know you're you're a horrible person who verbally abuses people and all that sort of bullshit. And from Heretic, it sounds like it's kind of like it's doing like something like that, just saying like get making a point, just like no, you're all just fucking weird with all this religious stuff. It doesn't. I don't know. It sounds like it's going a bit more of a playful way with it, and it's but it's like less like God's Not Dead and more just like your average RE lesson. You know?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that it feels like a direct response to those movies because there is like they do support the like belief of faith and like following your faith and things like that. And but it just all kind of gets like a little muddled toward the end where it's not really clear of what it wants to fully say. But to me, it didn't. To me, I think I compared it to like 12 Angry Men, which is a crazy comparison.
Oh, wow.
But it is something that is just three people in a room talking about what it means to have a spiritual connection, what it means to lead your life this way, what is the purpose of it, without really like there's some judgment between them, but like obviously because there wouldn't be tension otherwise, but it doesn't feel like a direct response to those movies and just how I took it.
Sure. I mean, again, I haven't seen it, so
Yeah.
maybe I'm just talking out of my arse here. But I think so. I think it comes out around Halloween here in the UK. I can't remember when it's out in the US, but
We're in November, early
November.
November.
Yeah. I think it comes out around the same time in the UK, so I'll be sure to check it out then. So moving on to day five, which is the 9th of September, I saw two films, We Live in Time, which we've just talked about, and then in the afternoon, I saw a film that's been getting a bunch of acclaim. It's Conclave, which is the new film from Edward Berger. He directed All Quiet on the Western Front from a couple of years ago on Netflix, and this is his new film. It's written by Peter Straughan, who also wrote Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and it's based on the novel by Robert Harris, and it is set in Vatican City. It's a very tense time. The Pope has just died, and so there's obviously a bit of a kerfuffle going on about who's going to be the next pope, who's going to be among all the current cardinals, who's going to be the next pontiff. So it falls to one cardinal who's played by Ray Fiennes. He's placed in charge of the procedure which to select a new pope, and a bunch of candidates emerged. There's Stanley Tucci, who's this very liberal-leaning, left-leaning priest, and then there's also John Lithgow is in there. He's a very bit of a controversial figure from Canada, and then. There's an Italian one who's very right wing. He wants to kind of bring the church back to very traditional standards, but obviously his policies are very bigoted and very racist and just not very Christian, let's put it that way. So and then it's all just about the power struggle that emerges from that, just like there's all the little twists and turns going on behind the scenes of like one person looks like he's going to be like the front runner, but then like something comes out about him, and that pretty much brings him out of the running, and it's just all builds and builds, and it really is. It's just this like political thriller with religious overtones, and it's very well played. Like I really liked All Quiet on the Western Front. I felt that it was a very tense and very bleak film, and Conclave isn't that, but I felt that there was a lot to admire just in how it really paces itself. Like it, that there are a lot of and for a film that kind of sounds like it's kind of like a Stone Cold Bummer, it is actually very entertaining. There's a lot of funny moments. There's some great performances. You know, you got Ray Fiennes in a very understated lead turn in. He's fantastic, and it leads to a bunch of twists that honestly I genuinely didn't see coming. Like there's one reveal quite late on about a certain character that actually had a lot of people like gasping and just like applauding even, and it's just like, oh wow, this is kind of interesting. And then Yeah, I had a lot of fun with Conclave. It's a typical political thriller, like something you'd see like Dan Brown kind of do, like Angel. It's like
Yeah.
Angels and Demons, but if it was written by an adult. So, I really dug Conclave. I thought it was a lot of fun. So I think that comes out at the end of November, and yeah, I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars.
I'm sad now that I didn't find a way to fit that in. I think I had like a press screening tentatively marked on my plan, and now I'm sad that I didn't see it.
Yeah, and it's not like a explosion happening every 5 minutes kind of film. It's all about just the build up, and it's just about how it's really just kind of builds towards one reveal after another, and it's all put together by a very tense score by Volker Bertelmann, who actually won the Oscar for All Quiet on the
Hmm.
Western Front. And it's, yeah, I think it's just a very well done film. I don't necessarily feel it's like a front runner for anything. It might get some nominations, but I can see it doing fairly well in that. But I don't, not sure about winning anything at the moment. I just think it's a fun, entertaining film.
I mean, I do miss those kind of like 90s, 80s political
Hmm.
like thrillers that are just like there's nothing like them.
No, no. I mean, this is very much on that kind of level. I mean, it's not like a campy film. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some like cheer moments. There's a moment with Isabella Rossellini. She plays a nun, and she doesn't have a lot of dialogue in the film, but the lines that she does have, they're very well chosen, and it leads to like one of the most satisfying moments in the movie. So, I mean, more films need more Isabella Rossellini anyway, in my
Always.
opinion. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that they utilized her well in this.
I would like to see it.
Did you see anything that was just as interesting?
I saw the assessment, which I think you also saw.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Might as well talk about that. Yeah. I mean, what did you think, first of all?
So it's basically set in some dystopian future of in order to become parents, a couple has to go through an assessment where I guess it seems like there's a long application process to even get to the point where an assessor comes into your house for 7 days and observes the couple and sees if you're fit to be parents. And that assessor is Alicia Vikander, and the couple is Elizabeth Olsen and Hamish Patel.
I think it's Himesh Patel, yeah.
Hamish.
A
Okay,
guy
I can't.
from yesterday.
Yes, yes. So I really liked it. I love the kind of retrofuturism production design. I love a claustrophobic setting. I think Alicia Vikander goes nuts in it. I
She
think
does.
it's so good because she starts off as very prim and proper and, kind of like not manager, but like very corporate, very much like stiff.
She comes in like a sterner Mary Poppins kind of.
Yes, yes, that's a great. And then over the course of the 7 days, she morphs into essentially a belligerent child
Mm.
that the Hamish and Elizabeth Olsen have to parent. And just the physicality of Alicia Vikander's performance in this movie
Mm.
is out of this world because it's just like you can see that her limbs just become that awkward movements of like a child that doesn't really know how their body works yet and like how to move and like it was very interesting and I think is a very compelling look at our future and didn't feel that far away.
No, no, because I mean the essential thing is, I mean, the reason they're having these assessments to determine whether or not people can have kids is basically the future as depicted in this movie is kind of it's kind of fucked basically. Like I mean, because climate change has pretty much ravaged the old world, and everyone's kind of living in this like dome like thing, and it's just more and more of a ways to kind of like keep overpopulation under control. So but as it goes along, like you said, it's a very litigious process. Like it feels designed by nature to like put people off, like from actually even going further in this application. And then, yeah, like you said, Alicia Vikander doing some of the most wild stuff I've seen in a film since Ex Machina. Just it because it is downright performance art in some
Hmm.
places. Like she is just going for it. She is eerily good as a young child. And then the stuff that she gets up to later in the film is just kind of crosses a line into quite alarming territory. And
Yeah.
that sort of stuff is fun. That kind of dynamic kind of comes to play later on. And yeah, she is so good in it. And yeah, I think Elizabeth Olsen is also great in it as well. I mean, I like Elizabeth Olsen anyway, but yeah, she's very good in this. She's kind of like it because the film is all about just about what it is to whether it's selfish or not to actually bring a child into a world where there isn't really much of a future. Because
Right.
I mean, when you look at it now, with all the stuff that's going on in our society, I mean, with overpopulation being a thing, climate change, all that stuff, it is kind of like, oh, do I really want to bring someone into this world who's going to have to deal with all this shit that we kind of messed up for them? So
Yeah.
it kind of plays on that, and all like you said with production design, that kind of looks like the old Soviet propaganda for like this is
Hmm.
what the future will be, but it's like the 60s, and it's just like
Yeah.
so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. It's a very unusual film, but I really enjoyed how it kind of builds this world without really showing much of it. Like I felt that it's a
Yes.
very good exercise in giving us enough details about this universe, but also keeping it fairly vague. I mean, I'm sure, obviously, because I'm sure it was filmed with a fairly low budget, so they couldn't show it even if they wanted to. But yeah, I felt that for what it did, they really made the most of it. So this is the debut feature of Fleur Fortune. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. So she was a music video director. She's worked with artists like M83 and stuff, and I believe she's done a short or two, and this is her first feature. And yeah, she really announces herself as a fascinating visual artist.
Hmm.
Like I'd be interested to see where her career goes after this.
Yeah, it felt like I feel like so many people say it felt like a Black Mirror episode and they mean it as like a derogatory thing because Black
Hmm.
Mirror I feel like has sort of fallen off in the past couple seasons.
Sure.
But this felt like Black Mirror that was like what hooked a lot of people into that series,
Yeah.
where it's kind of like my favorite Black Mirror episodes are the ones where it's not super technical, but it then reveals something. It has like a little bit of tech, and then it reveals something about the people and the what it is to be human and what it is to be parents and things like that. So it felt to me like a good old fashioned Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, no, I really liked it, and I believe Prime Video has picked up
Mm,
international distribution for it, so it'll be available at some point in the future on the surface. I don't know if it'll be in cinemas. Sometimes can be the case with some Prime Video releases, but not all of them. So
yeah.
it'd be interesting to see if this one gets that treatment because I mean I don't know. It doesn't surprise me that it's going to streaming, but it'd be interesting to see if this kind of gets an audience because again, like the people involved, Alicia Vikander, Elizabeth Olsen, they have quite a big following, so I can see it getting like at the very least limited theatrical release.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I agree.
yeah, so that was the assessment. It'll be out on Prime Video, God knows when. So yeah, that was the assessment, and yeah, were there any other films you wanted to talk about?
I'll just throw one out for Pepe, which was an experimental film that really worked for me about it was like a travel log kind of one of Pablo Escobar's hippopotamuses.
Okay,
And so that it just gets like it's done with a voiceover of Pepe the hippo.
okay.
And the hippo gets very existential and like talking about life and I don't maybe I was just in the mood to be like wowed by a hippo, but something about Pepe really stuck with me. It is very experimental,
Hmm.
and I think maybe if I had watched it a different day or like when I was more sleepy, then it might not have hit for me, but it was very interesting and a very uh odd way of looking at the kind of themes that it breaks down through the eyes of a hippopotamus.
I like films like that where it takes all these big existential themes, but takes it from the point of view of like an animal or something.
Yeah.
Like, a friend of mine, Matthew Buck, when he did his podcast for the London Film Festival last year, he was talking about a film called Tuesday with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and it's
Mm-hmm.
basically a film. I don't know if you've seen this film, but it's about basically about death, who's it comes in the form of a parrot, and he
Yes.
just kind of goes about and he like raps to Ice Cube at one point, and I remember hearing that. It's just like, yeah, I'm watching it. I'm fucking watching it. Like
Yeah.
you've sold me, and the movie turned out to be pretty good. It'd be interesting to see if Pepe has that kind of feel because maybe I'm just a sucker for hearing animals get all existential, but that just sounds right up my alley.
And the voice that they got for Pepe is just bonkers. It is, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just like so soothing. And I don't know. You got to experience at least the voice of Pepe the Hippo.
Do you know who is it? Anyone like a name that voices it, or just a
No, because
random?
no, it's not in English. It's done in like a bunch of different languages because it kind of follows like the path of Pablo Escobar and Pepe the Hippo
Okay.
because Pepe is the first and only hippo to have come to South America because then Pepe was murdered. So it's a very odd story in itself, but I think the voice of Pepe is like a bunch of different people that have like kind of been voice modulated into what it is.
Oh, that sounds kind of awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's very interesting just like to see it for like the artistic exercise that it is I would recommend it.
Nice. And yeah, I guess we can move on now to day 6, which is the 10th of September. And both of us can talk about this next film because we were not only at this screening, but we were sitting mere seat from one another.
Yep,
Yeah, yeah, we
Emilia
were
Perez.
Emilia Perez. Yes, I'd heard a lot of good things about this one. Like Anora, with it coming out of Cannes, winning all that it did, combined Best Actress win, and I think it won the jury prize as well. And yeah, you know what? Honestly, I was really taken by this. Emilia Perez is pretty damn good. I mean, like, because in an age where like it's feels like even the trailers are embarrassed to admit that they're musicals, like this one wears its musical influence to a T. Like this is so yeah, it's just wondrous and it's just so fascinating. I really love the story and the characters in this, and the songs are very good in itself. And I had a real blast with it. And I mean, I don't know what your thoughts were, but hopefully you felt something similar.
I did not.
Oh, okay.
For me, the songs, I really liked the first song, and then after that, they all kind of sounded the same to me. Like if we're just looking at it from strictly musical, maybe I'm an old-fashioned musical nerd, but I really wanted that like belting song. I wanted
Hmm.
somebody to just like their I don't know, Wicked's on the top of my mind. So like their
Hmm.
Defying Gravity moment, where
Hmm.
it's just like the show-stopping ballad that just. Most of these were just to me it felt like kind of talking in a rhythmic manner, and which is fine for like a song or two, but you have Selena Gomez who has a pop career, and
Hmm.
I don't know, I just wanted a little something more from the music itself. And from the story for me, it just felt like there was too much going on. There's just
Hmm.
too many things happening, and I wanted them to just like go deep on one of those things. Just to pick one and to go for it, because I think you have the story of a drug what like a
Is
drug kingpin
Mhm.
who wants to transition to be a woman, but then you do this like massive time jump and you don't actually like get to see this transition and this like huge important part of this Amelia Perez's life. And then you also have all of these other, like you have Selena Gomez's character, and like she's married to the kingpin, thinks that they're dead, don't realize that they transitioned to Emilia Perez. And then you have Zoe Saldana, who is also helping deal with like all of these missing and murdered children. And it just kind of felt like it was gliding over the surface of all of these things. And I really just wanted like to hone the focus on one of them and just like go for it on one of them. But I do appreciate original musicals. I think that that's cool. I think that it's cool that we're getting more, weirdly more original musicals than we've had in many years.
Dead, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, stuff like Wicked and stuff that's all fine, but it's nice to shake it up every now and then,
Hmm.
with something that's just really out there. And I mean, I like good, big, bonkers musicals like this, and I enjoyed Annette from a couple of years as well, for a few
I
years
liked
ago as
Annette.
well. And this is kind of and Emilia Perez, it's a musical in the same way. It feels like Moulin Rouge in a lot of senses. I mean, I'm not the biggest Baz Luhrmann fan. I'm honestly not that big on Moulin Rouge in and of itself, but it's that kind of like overly bombastic style, but it's a bit more reserved because it's Jacques Audiard, who is a very good director, and I really appreciate what he was doing on this. But it's a very I don't know. It's a very otherworldly kind of thing. It's obviously got a lot of style to it, and I get what you're saying. Like there is a lot going on, and it can be sometimes be tricky to kind of like focus on one more than the other, and I understand that. But for me, I felt like the thing with her not being shown like in the early days of her transition, honestly, I felt that was quite effective because when you first see this person as the drug kingpin. Like there's something very menacing about him, but he's also very like vacant inside. He's clearly
Hmm.
not comfortable. And then when it does that flash forward, when you first do see her as Emilia Perez, like there's just something so much more lively. It literally is
Yeah.
a different person, and I feel like Carla Sofia Gascon, who plays her, is just phenomenal. She is fantastic in this film, and she's got a great screen presence, and you can tell like she's got so much passion and life to give, and she puts in a very tender and very likable performance. And I think yeah, she really does carry it. And I think like all the cast, like Zoe Saldana is great, and Selena Gomez I thought was really good in this as well, like phenomenally so. But yeah, it really is. It's called Emilia Perez for a reason because Carla Sofia Gascon really
Yeah.
carries this movie, and I love this character. I love the kind of steps she was making to try and redeem herself, and all the little interplays she has with the other characters. I honestly, I mean, it's clear that I like the film more than you did, but I really did have a blast with this, and I'm really glad that it's catching on. I think France has just confirmed that it's going to be its submission for international feature films, so which is a wise decision because last year they really fumbled the bag with doing anything the other film other than Anatomy of a Fall.
Hmm.
So I'm glad they made the right decision in that regard. But we'll see how far it goes. But for now, I'm glad that I really got to experience Emilia Perez.
Yeah, I'm glad that I got to experience it in a theater as opposed to on Netflix when it inevitably gets dropped. It's kind I don't know when it's coming out, but it is a Netflix
I,
release.
I
So,
believe I believe it's like November, but it's
mm,
getting like a limited theatrical release. I've said a lot about Netflix and their theatrical output in the past. You can listen or watch my Hitman episode on that. But yeah, but this is one that definitely you can watch on the big screen and get as much out of it as you would at home. Like it's definitely worth seeing.
mhm.
And I guess for me, the other film I saw that day, another Netflix film, The Piano Lesson. So this is the third in producer Denzel Washington's adaptations of August Wilson's Pittsburgh Cycle anthology of plays. So he previously brought Fences and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom to the big screen,
Hmm.
and this is his latest one with Netflix. And of these August Wilson films so far, one is definitely the most cinematic. Like
Hmm.
it takes a lot of stuff that's in the actual play and it really kind of expands them on the screen. Like there's a so the film is about it's like a lot of August Wilson plays. It's set in like a little family house somewhere in Pennsylvania, I believe.
The Hill District of
It,
Pittsburgh.
it is actual Pittsburgh. So yeah, you
So they didn't film. This is a point of contention in Pittsburgh right now because Fences and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom both shot in Pittsburgh. Piano Lesson shot in Atlanta, and people are disappointed about that. But most of August Wilson's plays take place in the Hill District of Pittsburgh.
I mean, I can see why they did move it to Atlanta because there's a lot more countryside setting in the piano lesson. There's a lot more like fields work and crops and stuff like that. So I kind of get that in that sense. Again, I don't know if there's that sort of stuff in Pittsburgh, but
You can find it a couple hours out, which is why I think that people are kind of upset that like they moved it, or like that they didn't shoot at least the the some of the Pittsburgh scenes. Like part of the movie takes place in Mississippi, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so like those, I understand if you shoot those in Atlanta, but to kind of take August Wilson outside of Pittsburgh, I get why there's a lot of, especially when it could be done in the
Sure.
surrounding area. I see why there's a little tension
Yeah, I guess it's
because
like
I also saw it. Yeah,
yeah, I guess it's also kind of like taking Paddington out of London. It just doesn't feel.
exactly.
Although I guess he's Paddington in Peru is coming out, so maybe I'm just eating my words. Maybe it'll work just fine. But yeah, so piano lesson. So like I said, family in Pittsburgh, and the young man who's John David Washington, he comes into the house, which is owned by his uncle, who's Samuel L. Jackson, and his sister, who's Danielle Deadwyler. And their tension is that John David Washington, he wants to sell the family's piano, which has been with them for a number of years. It's kind of like an heirloom to them because it's comes from the antebellum slavery period. Their ancestors like carved a bunch of figures into the actual woodwork of the piano, and there's a whole thing about that they actually stole it from the white owners, and there's a source of contention there. And Danielle Deadwyler does not want to part with the piano at all. She doesn't even play it, but she does not want to part with it. And then it kind of gets into like a much more of a supernatural element, which
Hmm.
is it's very tricky to do in this kind of film. It's a very different kind of tone. So it is kind of a ghost movie, but more like a movie with ghosts in it. I felt like the film as a whole, I'm kind of mixed about, honestly, because while I appreciate that, they really pull out all the stops in making this stage to screen adaptation as cinematic as possible, like there is a lot of really interesting stuff they do with some of the editing and the cinematography in
Hmm.
that. So it really does expand on that. But, you know, I felt like there wasn't really much to it in terms of like the story and the characters. I felt like there was a little it didn't really deserve this kind of cinematic treatment. Like I think like there's a lot of stuff going on that's very dialogue heavy, which is fairly normal for like play
Yeah.
adaptations. But like there's a lot of stuff going on, and it kind of like becomes hard to really kind of get a gauge on what exactly the thing's supposed to be about, and it can kind of leaves you lost a little bit. And like and there are a lot of good performances. I think Daniel Deadwyler is great in the film. I
Hmm.
feel like it is disappointingly, I felt Samuel L. Jackson kind of got a bit of the shorthand a little bit because I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, this could be the film that could finally win him an Oscar." It's just like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, he's good in the film, but
Yeah.
like he's not. He's more of a reactionary role than anything. He's not really gotten really much depth compared to like say Viola Davis in Fences or Chadwick Boseman in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So
Right.
he's just kind of there most of the time. If anything, it's really Danielle Deadwyler's film to it's really her film more than it is Samuel L. Jackson. So in that regard, I'm a little disappointed by it, but like I thought it was fine. Like nothing I would like go out and rewatch or anything, but I'm glad I at least saw it.
I think I'm kind of skewing the other way from you. I really enjoy, I love when family dramas are like secretly ghost stories. I think that's why I love Mike Flanagan's work so much
Yeah.
because all of his are like love stories that are also mostly ghost stories, but there's like a little bit of a horror element in the piano lesson, and it really did feel like this could have been Mike Flanagan adjacent filmmaking. For me, what kind of didn't work for me, I thought John David Washington was playing the play like he was on a stage, like where you have to do kind of exaggerated actions where so that you're playing to like the back of the house, essentially.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that for me, he kind of took me out of it whenever he would have like the long monologues and things like that. But when it was Danielle and Ray Fisher, I was just like really swept up in it. And I really enjoyed it more so than I think some of the other. Actually, I haven't seen Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but I've seen Fences, and I love the opening of the piano lesson though, how
Hmm.
they had the lights pull, like fading in and out from the fireworks, and like
Mm.
you got little glimpses of what was as they were stealing the piano. So for me, I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I mean. Like, it's the most cinematic of the bunch.
Hmm.
Like you said, that opening with how the lighting is, and is that one shot through the house. Like
Yeah.
that's a very cinematic moment. Like, you don't really get that sort of stuff in the actual play. Like, again, I don't know if this, I don't know what the play is like and compared to the film, but I was very taken by that because this is Malcolm Washington who directed it, who's
Hmm.
also Denzel's son, and yeah, I think he definitely does a lot with camera movements. I just felt like it felt very constrained. Like, it didn't feel like there was a whole lot going on in terms of like stuff that it really grips me as much, which is a shame because I do want to get into this. I just didn't really, it didn't entirely click for me. I think I
Yeah.
gave it like a 3 out of 5 stars. I think I liked it about as much as I did Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which
Hmm.
again, similar thing, like great performances. I mean, Chadwick Boseman was just amazing, but the rest of the film, it was just kind of in one ear out the other, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I know you saw a bunch of other stuff today. I don't not sure if we've got a lot of time for all of them, but is there any one that you want to particularly highlight?
Yeah, I'll highlight one because it probably won't get nearly as much. It doesn't have any huge names attached, which some of the other ones that I saw do. And it's Your Tomorrow. It's an observational documentary about the Ontario place. It's this huge outdoor park near Toronto. It has a movie theater, it has a concert venue, but it's just this huge open space with a beach and walking paths and playgrounds. And it used to be this thriving thing in the 80s and 90s. And now government sees it as this wonderful opportunity for them to take the land back, sell it to somebody private, put a spa up there. It's this beautiful piece of lakefront property. And
Mm.
so Your Tomorrow is filmed over what might be the last summer that the Ontario place is what it kind of was in its heyday. It's no longer close to that, but it was just this really beautiful, kind of heartbreaking documentary that actually I think ended up coming in second or third place in the People's Choice Awards for documentaries about like places that we grew up with and the act of preservation. So I gotta shout that one out.
Nice one. And then after all those films, we went home and then cried ourselves to sleep because it was also the night of the Kamala Harris Donald Trump debate. So
Yeah.
arguably the most depressing piece of media we saw that day. I was in bed just watching that, just like, what the hell is he? What's he going on about eating dogs and cats and stuff? Like, what is going on?
I saw a Baby Girl that night instead of watching the debate because I've been American my whole life. I've learned my lesson about debate.
You made
But
the right choice. I'll say that,
I got an email from my mom. I have a little dog, that one.
right?
That my mom's very liberal, and so I got an email from her, and she emails instead of texts, and the subject line was, "You have to protect Frankie from the immigrants." And I was like, "What is this?" And I initially thought she got hacked or something because she would never say this. And then like 5 seconds later, my brain was like, "Oh, the debate, something crazy probably happened." And
And
then
it
of course
did.
I saw, yep.
Oh, they're eating the dogs. Oh, eating the cats. What? I don't know. Anyway, slightly depressing way to end the day, but that's politics in a nutshell.
Yep.
So at this point in our discussion, both Tina and I had realized that we've been going on for quite a while, to where we've probably been talking longer than most of the films we actually saw. So we made the calculated decision to save the rest for part two, because honestly, there's still a lot of films to talk about, from like Piece by Piece to Saturday Night to Baby Girl, which was just mentioned, and so much more, as well as other fun things that both Tina and I, or separately, got up to in and around the Toronto area. So you can expect part 2 of my already pretty huge recap of TIFF to come within the next few weeks. But sorry it's taken this long to get the first half out there. I've just been held up by so many things over the last month or so. Though hopefully putting together this upcoming second half together should be much more straightforward. So hopefully that should come sooner rather than later. Until then, though, thank you so much for listening to this point if you've not yet skipped to something else. And of course, thank you to my two brilliant guests for coming on and chatting with me. First, there's Benji Smith, who again you can find on TikTok at Benjaroo1. And of course, Tina Kakadelis, who you can follow on Letterboxd at Tina_docx, as in the Word document file. She's also on Instagram. The handle is at TinaKakadelis.jpg, and you can also find her on Twitter at Captain Ameripug. And check out her podcast, which you mentioned earlier, Movies with My Dad. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever else you get your podcasts. So yeah, that's all for part 1 of my great big bumper episode on TIFF. Be on the lookout for part 2 very soon, and I will see you then. Bye for now. Hey, you've made it to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for sticking around. Please like and subscribe on whichever platform you may be listening on. Make sure that you're following Film Feeder on all our social media channels, the links and handles to which are all listed in the episode description. And do consider supporting Film Feeder either on our Patreon or Ko-fi pages, the links to which are also in the description, where even the smallest donation, either monthly or as a one-off, will be an enormous contribution towards helping a hard-working creative like myself. Finally, don't forget to visit the Film Feeder website at filmfeeder.co.uk, where I post regular written reviews and weekly movie menus that round up all the latest movies coming to cinemas, streaming and on demand here in the UK. Until next time, I'm Jack Martin, your film chef extraordinaire, whetting your appetite for film each and every month. Bye for now.